Together, we will make America great again.
RPN is not responsible for the views, actions, statements, or opinions of its guests, advertisers, or even its viewers. The information contained in this program is not to be confused with medical or legal advice. An appearance on this platform is not necessarily an endorsement, but as always, we encourage you to do your own research. Enjoy the show. Good evening, everyone. And of course, welcome back. Yes, to another very exciting episode of Red Pill News Live. And today I am also going to be doing a very important interview with a young woman by the name of Henke. Now, Brittany, unfortunately, went through some very traumatic events in her home state of Michigan. She was kidnapped, she was assaulted, and then once she went to the police and the prosecutors for assistance, not only did they lie to her, did they string her along, told her to sell her house, put her in witness protection, and then they just dropped her, allowing her captors to go free, no punishment virtually of any kind happening to these guys, and then they weaponized the system against her. So I wanted to help shine a light on the corruption taking place in Genesee County, Michigan. Really, really disgusting stuff. On top of that, of course, we have a ton to discuss when it comes to the Epstein files. Lots of incredible revelations coming out overnight. Melinda Gates also breaking her silence. It's not looking good for Bill. So what I need from you, if you wouldn't mind, please hit that like button. Please help us out by sharing the show. And of course, I'm going to ask you to kindly sit back, relax, and grab your popcorn, because we're going to get into it right after a word from our sponsor. You know, guys, I get a lot of questions about the things that we talk about here on the show, especially when it comes to things related to health. And one of those items that I tend to get more questions about than just about anything else is ivermectin, either where to get it or when to use it. And so I am constantly sending out links, replying to those emails. And I figured, you know what, I'm just going to work together with someplace that I know I can trust, and that is quickrxstore.com. That way I can get you guys the information, and then I can also get you a discount at the same time. And what's even better is that they offer a lot more than just ivermectin. Pretty much everything you might want to find is in the description box below at quickrxstore.com. That is super easy, quickrxstore.com. A huge selection of things you guys might be looking for can be found just in the description below. If you click that link in the description box below and then also use the code GET10, GET10 at checkout, you're also going to get 10% off your order. They've got a huge selection of different things you might want to order. Their quality is guaranteed, and obviously you can save a lot of money. But with that code GET10, you're going to save even more, and they're also going to give you pretty fast shipping. They've done a lot of really great work for us here in the past. I've ordered from them on many different occasions, and I've been able to send a lot of people there. So if you're looking for ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine, you're going to want to head that way today. They also want to make sure you guys know they have fenbendazole, because it's another thing I get a lot of questions about. So definitely, if you're looking for Fenben, you can pick it up right there. I want you to check out this clip I'm going to play with Joe Tippins, who is another person you may have heard me talk about on many different occasions.
Because I'd already done my own research that once you have wide metastasis small cell lung cancer, you're literally a goner. The 0% chance of survival and 3 to 6 month life expectancy, and I was basically told to go home, get my affairs in order, and think about hospice.
Wow.
And the next day, I got a call from a large animal veterinarian in western Oklahoma, who's a college friend and family friend. And he told me this crazy story about a scientist at Merck on the veterinary side who has been doing cancer research on mice, and she had hundreds of mice that she'd implanted cancers in all their body parts. brain, stomach, liver, pancreas, etc. And her mouse population came down with intestinal parasites. And so she had no choice but to save her research. She gave all of her mice fenbendazole. If you went out to any zoo in the world, they bring in fenbendazole by the truckload, front-end loader, head-high piles in bays, because they give that drug to every single animal in the animal kingdom.
And one of the oldest and safest drugs around, right?
Yes, been around for 40 years. And so she did, and unfortunately, or fortunately for all of us, she also learned that she accidentally killed all the cancer.
Well, that was a surprise, right?
Yeah, it's just a serendipitous surprise, right?
So fenbendazole is a dewormer. Intestinal worms are obviously parasites. They can live inside of your body without any obvious signs, and a lot of people have got no idea they're dealing with something like that. But when you leave it unchecked, they can lead to complications ranging from bowel obstruction to loss of appetite, loss of weight, lung infection, even liver congestion. Now, having spoken about fenbendazole on many different occasions, you know, over time, people have talked about their own personal experiences, saying that it's helped them in so many different ways. And many, like Joe, have even mentioned benefits in serious situations, including cancer. Now, as always, people should do their own research and make informed decisions. But I wanted to share that important context while you're watching this. So once again, guys, check them out in the link below. QuickRxStore.com. Use that code GET10, save 10% off your entire order. And thank you very much for supporting the sponsors of this show. All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here. I need to give a shout out to a couple of people over here on Pilled. First of all, Misfit Angie, thank you for joining as a member over on Rumble. Also, Moonbaby0437, thanks for bringing me the true news. Appreciate you, Zach. Appreciate you as well. Trump1 says, Zach rocks. Thank you for that, my friend. And Filter Dog says, yes, Fox News can confirm law enforcement found blood inside the Arizona home of Nancy Guthrie and that there were signs of forced entry. The mother of Savannah Guthrie has apparently been kidnapped from her Arizona home, which is relatively close, if I'm not mistaken, to the Mexico border. We will be talking about that a little bit later in the show. As I said, we've got a lot to discuss when it comes to the Epstein information. Some brand new people that you may remember have now been exposed. And I need to give a big shout out to Lewis. Lewis, thank you so much for the donation. Thank you as well to Eleanor 2000 for the donation and the beautiful card and the presents for both myself and Lisa. She sent me some Emerald Med CBD balm, which I'm going to be using on my back. Thank you so much for that. Soccer Mom 43 also says, Zach, you are a joy. Thank you for all you do and all that you have to put up with. Well, you know, it is a little to put up with, really, in the large scope of things, because I get to come here every single day, hang out with you guys, and bring you news and information. All right, so we are going to go ahead and just bring in our guest, Brittany Henke. Let me get her pulled up on screen here, and let me make sure that the format is correct. All right, and yes, there we are. Brittany, thank you so much for being here.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Excellent, excellent. All right, so as I was saying to the audience before you got here, you've gone through a terrible ordeal there in Michigan. You were kidnapped, you were assaulted, and then rather than the police and the prosecutor doing the right thing, helping you as they appeared to be at the beginning, they completely turned the situation on its head and they weaponized it against you. So please tell the audience a little bit about yourself and how this entire thing began.
I'm a mother of 3, and I live here in Genesee County, Flint, Michigan. And it's all day I've been thinking about just going through this. It's hard to relive it, but
I can imagine.
I just got out of an abusive relationship, and one of my ex's friends had contacted me, said he had some info on my ex. I was out with a girlfriend that night, and they said, hey, come meet us or whatever. And I want to, tell you about your ex. And I feel like because I was in like a vulnerable situation, I wasn't clearly thinking, like, I didn't know the severity of like who this guy was. Well, I went and met with them, and they asked me, to have a couple drinks, and I ended up at a house, kidnapped, And I kept trying to leave, and whatever they put in my drink, I just kept getting, more dizzy. I didn't feel like I was myself. I felt like almost like an out of body experience.
So,
And
Brittany, did you like lose consciousness or black out at any point?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
I blacked out. I remember them raping me. I remember them like whispering things to each other. And I just kept thinking like, I'm gonna die. Like I'm dying is what I felt like was happening. And after pretty much being tortured and raped for so long, I ended up passing out. And I woke up the next morning and I remember shivering. I had foam coming from my mouth. And I was just like looking around and I'm like, I'm dead. You know what I mean? Like I died. I was on a mat completely naked, and I'm like, I'm dead. And
And
I looked.
what time of year is this? Is this like summer, fall, winter?
This was February of 2022.
Okay, so
And
cold in Michigan.
yes, very cold. Yeah. And that's why I thought I was dead. I'm like, I'm freezing, like I must be dead. And then I woke up and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm okay. Like, God, get me out of here. But I couldn't like really comprehend things. Like I couldn't remember my name, like who I was, like where I was. And then I remember walking out and kind of seeing like my clothes scattered. And I remember seeing the two of them and they just kind of looked at me like they seen a ghost. And I'm like, I'm like, can I just go outside? And, I got myself dressed. I'm like, can I just go outside and have a cigarette? And one of them got in my face and he's like, you remember the code, because these guys were bad guys. And in my mind, I'm like, I got to say yes or I'm going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And he tried to like intimidate me and I said yes. And I said, can I please just go outside? And I remember I grabbed my purse and my keys were in it. And there was a little window behind me and I looked behind me and I jumped in my car and I took off. And I remember just being so out of it that I'm just like, God, like take me where I have to go, like just get me home. And there was a lot of snow and it was just almost like there was this path and I just kept driving straight. And I took myself to the hospital and it was during COVID.
And did these guys like try to chase you or anything, or did you?
I'm not sure because
Okay.
I took off, and I was, like I said, I was so out of it, but I knew I got raped,
Yeah.
and I knew I got drugged. And I remember there was a bunch of Benadryl in my back seat. There was drug paraphernalia like in the window of my car that I didn't find till a couple days later. And I go to the hospital and it's during COVID and they're like, you're going to be here all day. So we're going to call the YWCA and we're going to get you in there and they're going to do your rape kit. And so then I have to find out how to get to the Y, because I'm not like fully there. Like
Right.
I just didn't feel like myself. And I remember walking around the Y for probably 30 minutes, like trying to figure out how to get in the door. And this lady found me with a blanket. And I go in there and I get my kit done and, I'm telling the lady everything and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm alive. Like things are starting to hit me of what happened. And my girlfriend was with me that night, or I would have never even met with the person I was meeting with to talk. And she ended up leaving me that night and had even said and was going to testify that, they kind of said they were going to do something to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember getting all that done. And I remember the officer that took my report, he actually said that I said one of the guys was my boyfriend.
Mm-hmm. And he wasn't.
So, and he wasn't.
Yeah.
So that messed up right there,
Yeah.
So anyways, I went through all this. The police showed up at my door one day and they were like, we found their DNA, and do you want to pursue this? Because this is 9 counts of kidnapping, 9 counts of CSC first degree. And we want to get you justice, you deserve that. And I'm like, of course I do. So I went through with everything that they told me. Well, I started getting threats.
Mm-hmm.
And this was in 2023, I want to say around March. And one day my detective called me and she's like, we got to come get you. Like, you're going into police protection. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, we have to get you out of that house. Well, my oldest child was at school, and I'm like, well, you know, I gotta get her. Like, I can't just leave. So I had cops like swarm my house as my daughter's getting off the bus, and they're like, grab a bag, grab her bag, and we gotta go. And then they drove us. I had 2 cop cars in front of me and 2 behind me, and they drove us to a hotel.
So did they ever tell you what had set them off? I mean, made them think that you were in that much danger? Because, I mean, that sounds like maybe they got some specific credible intelligence to suggest that they were going to shoot your house up, or they were going to come in and assassinate you and your kids or something.
Well, I think somehow the word got out, you know, that I had went to the police, and that I ended up getting messages from a couple of people. You know what I mean? Like, you're basically like, your time's coming for,
Right.
you know, being a snitch.
Yeah.
And I'm like, being a snitch? I'm like, I was raped.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I ended up going and staying at this hotel with the kids, ended up getting all my kids together. But 2 of them, you know, were going to school here, which was really difficult for me because it's like, no matter what, I still had to come to Flint to take my kids to school.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lot of times they were late or they missed because I'm in like survival mode.
Sure.
You know, I'm like, am I going to die? Like, and protective services, and Karen Hansen, who's a prosecutor, was like, listen, like, do you have somewhere you can go out of state? And I'm like, yeah, actually I do. My mom has a house out west. Like, I can give you all the information. They promised me they were going to relocate me. They were going to buy me a new vehicle. I mean, just sold me the sun, the moon, and the stars, you know? So this whole time I'm living in this hotel with my kids with no money, you know, because I couldn't work. I'm thinking,
Brittany,
okay.
They also advised you to sell your home because of the fact that they were going to relocate you. I mean, I feel like that's so important because, I mean, obviously they went through all of this trouble to, you know, uproot you and protect you. But, I mean, they also destabilized you in a way that made it impossible for you to even go anywhere. I mean, you were essentially at their whim. And why wouldn't you trust the police? Why wouldn't you trust the prosecutor? I mean, like you said, you were raped, you were kidnapped, you were facing, you know, imminent bodily harm for yourself and your children from people who are just obviously bad people.
Right, right. So I'm thinking, you know, I can trust everybody. Like, they're going to take care of me. And the only thing I was living on was state assistance food stamps. You know what I mean? I had no income other than my family, you know, giving me some money here and there. And I'm like, you guys, like, I have no money for gas. I have no money for my kids. Like, my kids need things. Like, I can't live like this. You know, and I have no babysitters here where I'm at, and I'm too afraid to send them with anybody because of my situation. I just want to get the heck out of here. And they kept just promising me things, and the court dates would get postponed, you know, to go before these guys. They just kept getting postponed. I even had one of the prosecutors, Glenn Cotton, he had a heart attack right before I was going up to testify. And then the next thing I know, the one guy that they let go because they said he passed a polygraph test,
which are inadmissible in court.
Right. And what I said, all of a sudden he ends up free and all his charges are dismissed, but he's in prison for something else.
And just to be clear, they had his DNA from your rape kit, correct? So, okay.
Correct.
All right.
Correct.
All right.
Correct.
So they just let him go. So, I mean, it sounds like maybe he made a deal with the prosecutors to maybe turn on somebody who was a bigger fish than him.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So, and this whole time, you know, they're telling me, all right, we're going to get this arranged for you to move out of state. And it wasn't until I was talking to my counselor who was like, you can't just pick up and leave with your kids out of state. Like, that's kidnapping. You will go to prison for that. And I'm like, no, they're telling me I can do this. And they're like, no, you know, she's like, no, you cannot. She's like, you have to hire a lawyer. So I hired my first lawyer. Her name was Sue Philpott. And that was one of the biggest mistakes of my life. But I'm thinking, hey, Karen Hansen, the prosecutor, said she's going to back me up. She's going to write me an affidavit, victim services, Lisa Jarowski, she's got all this information. They're going to get me this affidavit and I'm going to get the heck out of here. Well, anyways, I go to court, or I go to, start the court process, and my ex-husband, I get this letter where it's just nothing but lies. Nothing but lies. Like, I'm a wild party girl, never have my kids. They're bounced around from house to house. I'm a drug addict. I beat my children. I hang out with gang members. I mean, the list goes on, that I fabricated the story that I'm in police protection. And I'm reading it and I'm thinking, well, this is going to be a piece of cake, because the prosecutor and everybody's going to clear this up for me and be like, no, like, she really is like going through all this stuff.
Yeah, because you just, and also to be clear for the audience, you've got documentation. I mean, there have been court cases, there has been paperwork, you've got communications with the prosecutors and the detectives and all of it.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. I got all of it. So anyways, I go into family court for the first time. And I hear all these lies about me, and I'm thinking it's like, regular court where you can actually defend yourself and have witnesses. Well, no, in family court, totally lies hold up. Yeah. I had so many drug tests to where I spent $1,000 and I was missing so much hair in the left side of my head, to the point where the lady at the drug place, where they do the drug test, she said, ma'am, I have never seen them do anything like this before. When you're negative, like, at least a couple times, like, that's it.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't believe it. I would sit there and I'm thinking, here I am, supposed to be a victim of a crime, one that I'm trying to heal from. I'm traumatized from it. And I'm sitting here now fighting for my children. So then after that, my son's dad joins my ex-husband, and they use the same lawyer, Justin Henry. And they hire a gal, Julie Griffiths. These two tag team me. They were biased. There was nothing I could say or do that would have been good enough. Like, she was like, well, your son, his attendance and your daughter's attendance. I said, I am living 45 minutes away in police protection. I am worried about our safety. I'm scared to even take them to school.
Makes sense.
So then my oldest at the time was 14. I let her start staying at my mother's, so my mom could help me with her taking her to school. And then that got used against me in family court. Well, you don't even have your daughter. Well, you have her put off on someone else. No, like, I can't do all this stuff with no income, trying to get through this court case. I got 3 kids in a little hotel room. Well, you have a swimming pool. That was the highlight. Like, you got a swimming pool there for the kids. I'm like, well, how many times can they go swimming before they're like, when are we going home?
Right. Oh, that's so awful. So eventually, what happened with the other case? Was that dropped against him as well? Or did he receive any type of punishment?
So I go in to talk to Karen Hansen, and my mother was with me, who used to be a commissioner here in Genesee County. And I always took my mother with me, or I'd have a witness, with me.
Sure.
So I go in to talk to Karen Hansen, and she starts asking me, because I used to work at a bar, and it was mainly a biker bar. And I would work under the table, because my kids' dads don't pay their child support correctly or whatever. I did what I had to do. And so where was I going with this? So Karen Hansen says, well, we have pictures of you with bikers, and, we want to know the names of so-and-so and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that has nothing to do with what I'm here for. Like, I came here to find out about the sentencing, like what's going on. Karen Hansen pretty much flipped everything around on me, like a guilty by association thing. Which, let me remind you, the guys that did what they did to me, they had nothing to do with bikers or anything.
Sure.
Okay. And I said, Karen, I worked at a biker bar, and I said, if anything, them guys were nice to me. They walked me out to my car. They protected me, whatever. I said, I did what I had to do as a single mother to make money, and pay for my home that I owned at the time. Everybody was taken care of. And I'm like, I'm not going to put myself in more danger and tell on people, especially ones that never did anything to me. I don't know their personal business or what they're doing, you know? And as soon as I talked to her like that, the whole script changed. And she even accused me of doing drugs. And I said, Karen, how many drug tests have I done in family court? I even sent my detective of when I used to work at General Motors, my hair test. I said, I've never had a drug issue in my life. And the drugs that these guys gave me was a cocktail that's not something somebody would, you know what I mean,
Sure.
willingly do.
Yeah, yeah.
So it all got flipped around on me. And I felt like because I didn't, tell on people, it got flipped on me, and she made deals with them.
Yep, yep.
She made deals with them. And I found out that the one that originally set me up, like I said, she said, well, he passed a polygraph test, so we dropped his charges. And I just looked at her and I was like, what? I was shocked.
Yeah, I've never heard of anything like that. I mean, obviously polygraphs are not admissible in court, and especially because there was evidence of I would imagine they did a physical examination. So you've got physical evidence of being assaulted. You've got the DNA evidence to show that there were multiple perpetrators involved. You've got the chemical test from whatever drugs they gave you to put you out, And obviously, I mean, these guys were most likely known to law enforcement, I would imagine. So, I mean, they had their DNA on file already.
Yeah. So the second guy, he's got a long history. Like, you can look him up on Google. He's a known leader, big criminal history for drug trafficking, a whole bunch of stuff. Why would you want to save this guy over an innocent life with someone who doesn't have a criminal record, a mother? But they painted me out to just be this fictional character in the end, like almost like I was asking for it. Like, I felt discriminated against.
Sure.
This girl's got kids by different guys. She worked at a bar. She's got tattoos on her body. It turned into my fault. It's like how I felt.
It sounds like they turned these either one or more of them into confidential informants, probably working for them on an ongoing basis, and then they needed a reason to just have you go away, because obviously there was a legitimate case here, and both of those guys should have ended up in prison.
Yeah.
So did you ever, was there ever anything else to like connect these guys with, like, say, people at DCF or Child and Family Services, or what is it called in Michigan? It's like, I don't remember what it's called in Michigan, but whatever the Child and Family Services is, or maybe like with the court itself, or maybe with any corrupt cops or anything like that, because I know Flint's got a lot of problems. I mean, I grew up in Michigan. My entire life I've heard about all the issues that Flint has.
I feel like everything's dirty here.
Sure.
I feel like everything's dirty here. And once I had that last conversation with Karen Hansen and, David Layton, like, before I went into trial this last time, I want to say it was in September, when I actually got to do my victim statement, one of the prosecutors reached out to me and she's like, I just want to let you know, they already made a deal with him. He's, if like, they wanted to completely let it go, but he's going to get a registered sex offender CSC 4 is, what they're talking about, if the judge agrees. But she said, I'm telling you, the deal was already made.
Wow.
And I'm like, the deal was already made.
Yeah.
And when I'm looking at him and doing my speech, looking at him, he was shaking and he actually got up like he was going to hit me. And my detective was like, I kind of was hoping he would. So then we could, do something, because this is just awful.
So the police were understanding.
Oh yeah, my police officer, or police officers and the detective that dealt with my stuff, I felt like was genuine. Like, my discernment tells me that they were genuine and cared about me. And during my transportations and things like that, they know who these guys are. They know they're bad. I really feel like the big problem here is the prosecutors making these deals. And I even reached out to our sheriff, and nowhere to be found, not even a reply back of like, hey, I'm sorry this happened to you.
I was just going to ask you, I mean, did anybody ever apologize? I mean, I don't know how much you sold your house for, if you had to take a loss on it, but I mean, certainly lots of pain and suffering, lots of obvious problems that you've had to go through, the process with the family court. I mean, it's no fun. It's no fun.
I lost over $100,000 because of everything. And I actually pulled this out. I'm going to block out these names, but this is my little witness protection plan that they gave me. Look at how short this is. I ended up getting $5,400 in the end. $5,400. So that was 4 months rent for me to move back in this area where I shouldn't even be living.
So you are back in Flint now?
Yeah, okay. I couldn't find anything cheap enough because they kept prolonging giving me any money towards anything. So I ended up finding a landlord that would kind of work with me because I told them my situation. Because they kept saying, oh, we're waiting for the money. We're waiting for the money. Well, how do you go from you're going to move me out of state from, my kids, my dog, transportation, everything, to you only give me $5,400?
Well, and was there anything in terms of like restitution that the one guy who had to plead guilty to a charge, did he have to pay anything? Or, I mean, is he?
I'm not sure. All I know is he is a registered sex offender, 5 years probation. That's all I know. CSC 4.
Okay. And do you at least have a restraining order, no contact order or anything like that?
I didn't get one yet. I guess I should. I don't think, I feel like I've went downtown so many times and tried to get things and they don't go through.
Sure. You just kind of give up hope at a certain point.
Yeah. And I have PTSD severely going down there because I'm like, you guys like violated me as bad as they did. And then with the family court, I mean, my children were the only thing keeping me here, like keeping me strong. And then the thought of almost losing them and then having everything be used against me in family court is the most traumatizing thing I've ever been through in my life.
Sure. I mean, I've had to deal with the family court system before, and you basically are at their whim. If they decide that they have their eye on you, you have to do everything that they want you to do, and it doesn't matter how ridiculous it is. If they want you to take drug tests every other day, then you have to do that. Okay. Well, God.
And I think one thing, we had talked about before was, I even said on the record, I found out that Justin Henry and my perpetrator's lawyer, Fanous, they were sharing information, and I got this information from a very valuable source, and I don't want to put their name out there, but they have this like little database where they can see the conversations between the lawyers. They were using my toxology report against me in family court, and he was getting this from my perpetrator's lawyer. So I said that on the record, and the judge said, well, I find that hard to believe.
Why don't you just ask the lawyer if that's what they're doing?
Right. Yeah. And then I file a grievance against the lawyers and didn't even hear back from the grievance place. I'm like, how is all this stuff legal and going on? Like that broke HIPAA right there. You guys sharing my information.
Yeah, that is so wild. How did they even get the toxicology report? Was that provided to them by the prosecution as part of the discovery?
I'm assuming so. Yeah. And Fanous, the perpetrator's lawyer, gave it to my ex's lawyer.
That is crazy.
And when he labeled the drugs that I did, it was labeled exactly the way that it was in the toxology report.
Yeah. So,
and I even highlighted it and sent it back in the grievance. And I'm like, look, guys.
Yeah. Oh, that is so awful.
So, and then I think I told you, Elizabeth Bren, that worked in victim services in Genesee County, was friends with my perpetrator's girlfriend and was sharing my location.
There you
go.
And
I had someone come to me and tell me. So then someone told me, hey, I got a warrant, because I ended up finding out, that this was true, and Karen Hansen wouldn't sign it. So my life was in danger the whole time I was in police protection. They knew where I was. And this lady is working for victim services.
That is so crazy. That is probably the most insane thing I've ever heard. And obviously you've got nothing that you can do about that. You're just stuck.
No. And I've made, I made my TikTok. My name's Gunner Jean on there, 888. Because I would sit here every day and I'm like, I can't live with this.
Mm-hmm.
I can't live with not having justice for my children. How many women get raped and silenced? I've had women come to me, like I was at this conference and I had some Black women come to me and they were like, we thought it was just us.
Mm-hmm.
We thought it was just us. Like, and I said, no, I think that if you're not the perfect picture to put on TV, like, look at this poor girl.
Yeah.
You're just silenced. And that's exactly what they do. They scare you so bad that you won't talk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that's not the type of woman I am. I mean, after being violated the way that I was, and, my children, you don't mess with my kids.
Good for you.
You don't mess with my kids. And I will fight for every woman, because nobody's going to go get a rape kit. Nobody's going to make something like that up. And being raped takes a part of you that you can never get back.
Mm-hmm.
I'm healing, but I think about that every day. It took a part of me,
I imagine.
So, and then just to be stuck here in this state with the injustice, I'm disgusted.
Yeah.
I'm just disgusted with this county.
Well, my heart goes out to you. Absolutely. Listen, Brittany, tell everybody once again, you said you've got a TikTok. Do you have any other social media that you want people to know about? They can follow you, maybe see any updates to your story?
I have Facebook, which my name on there is Brittany Henke, and it's BrittaneHenke. And then my TikTok is Gunner Jean, and the last name is spelled with a G too, and it's 888. So that's where I share most of my corruption stories or like my updates. I had to, use the alias Gunner. At first because I had Facebook used against me in family court. They took my old bar photos and were like, look at her, look at the bad mom. But yeah, so I talk a lot on there. And actually when I made it, I thought, man, I'm going to be on here like getting criticized, but I barely ever have anybody say, oh, you're lying about family court. I hear all these stories. Thousands of people come to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Telling me the same thing happened to them and how it's so corrupt.
Yes, absolutely. I've talked to more people than I can count that have been through situations that are just as bad, if not worse. It's awful.
Yeah. Yeah. I know a lot of people that I actually, I had somebody, they're saying he committed suicide a couple weeks ago. I'm not quite sure if that's true. He was saying quite a few things about the sheriff here. And last time I talked to him was in August and he was in hiding and he was kind of giving me, pointers on how to go about this. And now he's not here anymore.
That's crazy. Is that in the news?
Yeah, that they're not saying that. They're just saying, he went through some injustice in family court and, they're saying he took his life, but there's no funeral service. There's no nothing.
Wow.
So I found that very odd. But I have said when I went to court on the record that I would never unalive myself also.
Oh, yeah. You definitely want to make sure that everybody is aware of that.
Right.
We've got people in the chat asking if you have a GoFundMe set up or a Give, Send, Go.
I do have a Cash App set up on my TikTok.
Okay. And that's GunnerGene888.
Yes.
And then Cyrus the Great over on Rumble says, I'm a landlord in Indiana. I can probably hook you up with a place, but it's far from the court you're probably using. Southern Indiana is on the Kentucky state line. So yeah, that one final question. I mean, are you looking to move out of Michigan anytime soon? I mean, is it all dependent upon your children growing up? I mean, obviously the issues with the fathers, I would imagine you have to stay within a certain distance.
I have to stay within 100 miles and My dream is to move out of here because I want to start over. I want to know I'm safe. I'm tired of having to drive around. You know, I have my CPL, but I have to drive around with my gun, watch my back, even pumping gas. I just feel like I never know, you know, when my last day is going to be. And even living where I'm living, like, I can't believe that I'm trapped here with my kids.
Yeah.
And I can't believe that this is considered the best interest when, and anything, and that was used against me too. Well, you're in danger,
Sure.
you know, so that means you're not fit for your children. No, if I'm in danger, my children are, I was a victim of a crime. How can you use that against me?
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense at all.
It doesn't make sense.
No. All right. Well, Brittany, I want to thank you very much for getting in touch with me and coming here and sharing your story. And I encourage anybody who's on TikTok, definitely go give her a follow and stay in touch. And I'd like to know if there's any updates in the future.
I really appreciate you. And thank you, everybody, for your love and support. God bless you. Thank you.
God bless you as well. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Yep, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. And thank you again so much to my child for getting us in touch. Thank you to Brittany for coming here and sharing her story as well. Really do appreciate it. Trump 1 says, pilled chat fam the best. I'm glad you guys are enjoying it. Okay. All right. Now, let us get back to today's news. I've got quite a bit that we need to discuss. First of all, Jill Biden's ex-husband. Several weeks ago, we talked about the fact that his wife was found dead under mysterious circumstances inside their home in Delaware. Well, Jill Biden's ex-husband has now just been arrested for the murder of his wife. Let's take a look at this.
A man believed to be former First Lady Jill Biden's ex-husband has been charged with murder. He's accused of killing his wife. Chief Washington correspondent Mike Emanuel has the latest on this. Mike.
Harris, 77-year-old William Stevenson was arrested yesterday and charged in connection with the death of 64-year-old Linda Stevenson on December 28th. There are reports William Stevenson is the ex-husband of former First Lady Jill Biden.
This is his mugshot. He looks rather cheery for being arrested for the murder of his wife.
But Fox has not independently confirmed that. The Newcastle
This is definitely him. I can confirm that myself. This is definitely Jill Biden's ex-husband because I've done digs on this guy before.
Delaware Police Department telling us, quote, will not be providing any additional comment regarding this incident when asked if they can confirm the connection to Dr. Biden. The charge in this case is first-degree murder. William Stevenson has been arraigned and is being held in the Howard County Correctional Institution after failing to post a $500,000 cash bail. Delaware authorities say local police responded to a reported domestic dispute on Sunday, December 28th at 11:16 p.m. Investigators say they found Linda Stevenson unresponsive in the living room. Officers immediately tried life-saving measures, but she was later pronounced dead.
So now, normally, I would say this doesn't seem right. I mean, like, why would this guy kill his wife? I mean, he's 77 years old. He's already been through enough. But I don't know the circumstances of their relationship. I did confirm that this was a situation where they were both home alone on a Sunday night. Like they said, it was like 11:16. There was some type of an altercation that took place between them. And when he called 911, he said something like she may have had a heart attack. Now, we don't have a cause of death on the wife. We don't know what the scene looked like. I'm thinking that stuff will come out in the near future. But it is a very odd situation. Now, if you don't know the story, this man was married to Jill Biden. Then at that time, obviously, her last name wasn't Biden. And Joe met Jill and then broke up their marriage and stole Jill and then married her. Joe was somewhat older compared to Jill. And, you know, the whole thing is totally wild. But anyways, thank you for everybody who is here with us right now. Again, if you haven't yet, hit that like button. And wanted to give you an update on the situation with the Clintons. We learned yesterday that Bill and Hillary Clinton did, in fact, by the end of the day, agree to come in and sit down for a sworn deposition on camera, each of them under no restrictions, no time limits, no limit on the questions, no limit on the subjects of the questions. And yesterday, there was the announcement that they were planning to hold that vote for contempt of Congress. That would have been tomorrow. But understanding the circumstances they were facing, yesterday they did announce. Now, through their Deputy Chief of Staff, Angel Urena, they shared the Oversight Committee's announcement, and they said they negotiated in good faith. You did not. They told you under oath what they know, but you don't care. Now, that's not true. Bill and Hillary Clinton have not testified under oath at all yet, so I don't know where that claim comes from. He continues by saying, but the former president and former Secretary of State will be there. They look forward to setting a precedent that applies to everyone. Well, the good news is Congress has already set that precedent, which is why Bill and Hillary Clinton are going to be forced to come in and testify. Now, we also have the announcement from James Comer, where he tells us exactly what's happening. He said, once it became clear that the House of Representatives would hold them in contempt, the Clintons completely caved and will appear for transcribed, filmed depositions this month. So this will happen before the end of February. Former President Clinton appears for deposition on February 27th, and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton appears for deposition on February 26th. Interesting, they're going to have Hillary come in before Bill. I would suggest that Hillary Clinton's deposition may be even more important than Bill's. After delaying and defying duly issued subpoenas for 6 months, the House Oversight Committee moved swiftly to initiate contempt of Congress proceedings in response to their noncompliance. Luckily, because of the Democrat-controlled Unselect Committee, the precedent was already set that if you are held in contempt of Congress, you can be jailed, just like Steve Bannon and just like Peter Navarro. He concludes by saying, we look forward to now questioning the Clintons as part of our investigation into the horrific crimes of Epstein and Maxwell to deliver transparency and accountability to the American people and for survivors. Now, we also have a statement from the lead attorney for the Clintons, and isn't this interesting? His name is Nick Merrill. He used to work at the State Department, I believe, under Hillary Clinton, and he's also the co-founder of Evergreen Strategy Group. Evergreen, of course, directly connected to Hillary Clinton as her code name. At the 11th hour, James Comer asked for a camera, he claims. That's fine. He can have 100 or 1,000 cameras. The Clintons will do this publicly. That is, of course, an effort to suggest in the same way that their spokesperson did that for some reason it was Congress that was making unreasonable requests. Sworn depositions under oath are always performed in front of a camera. This is totally normal in Congress. So Nick Merrill is a spook, if I had to guess. Allegedly, in my opinion, having worked for the State Department, also being a owner of Evergreen Strategy Group, I tend to believe that Nick is very attuned to the use of parsing language, just in the same way that Bill and Hillary Clinton are. So let us move on from them. And let's do an update on Eagle Ed Martin. Yesterday, we learned that Eagle Ed Martin may not be heading up the weaponization working group any longer in the Department of Justice. Now, the story goes that he is not leaving the Department of Justice. He's continuing to work as the official pardon attorney, but he is moving on to some other area of the Department of Justice. Now, it has been said that Todd Blanche is not someone who can be trusted. I've always maintained that he was President Trump's personal attorney, and President Trump made him the deputy attorney general. So I figure in all of my experience watching President Trump work, either, he must really trust Todd Blanche to have him in place in this administration, or he's looking to expose him. Now, the story goes that it was actually Todd Blanche who fired Ed Martin as the chief justice, the chief of the Justice Department's weaponization working group. Now, that is only a report coming from Paul Sperry, so that has not yet been confirmed. But it was President Trump himself who nominated Ed Martin, not only to be the pardon attorney, but also to serve as the head of the weaponization working group. But allegedly, because Todd Blanche fired Ed Martin, it means that essentially for the last 55 days, because this didn't happen yesterday, this allegedly happened mid-December, that the Russiagate investigation has essentially been stagnant as a result of it, and that the weaponization working group was allegedly totally folded on New Year's Eve. Now, Ed Martin has not spoken about this publicly, but he did first thing this morning post this picture of himself meeting with President Trump. Now, again, knowing that President Trump tasked him with running the weaponization working group and also tasked him with not only being the U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia, which they couldn't get passed through because of the Senate, but he also tasked him with being the pardon attorney. There's obviously a line of communication between the president and Ed Martin. There's also got to be a line of communication between Todd Blanche and the president. So I don't think that it's possible for anything to be happening behind the scenes or in the shadows or something like that. So whatever order this entire story played out, I still believe that the president and his people are in place. And even though it looks for us out here in the public like maybe there's infighting, maybe there is some problems taking place, I don't think that it's safe to claim that yet. Because if Ed Martin was shut out of the Justice Department and he had no power, or he wasn't doing anything anymore, I don't think that he would have gotten an audience with the president immediately after all of these reports are coming out. What I will say is that the administration has, on many occasions, used these tip-offs of supposed infighting happening within the administration to maybe cover for other things that are happening at the same time. So all I'm saying is make sure you still keep an eye on Ed Martin. And obviously, I'm going to be keeping an eye on Todd Blanche in the Justice Department. Several months ago, there was also a rumor that Ed Martin was allegedly being investigated because of the indictment or the criminal referral against Adam Schiff. Haven't heard anything on that either. However, both Ed Martin and Todd Blanche confirmed that there was no investigation into Ed Martin. There was, however, a grand jury investigation into Adam Schiff. Still waiting to see what happens with that. However, the problem with that is the district in which they would be prosecuting Adam Schiff would be in the same neighborhood as Washington, D.C., Eastern District of Virginia. That's all a very kind of cozy area of the country. And if we don't have the U.S. attorney in place that we need to bring the indictment and to prosecute this case, well, we don't want to waste our opportunity. So moving on from Ed Martin. This is the latest that we just got today from Paul Sperry. And again, he was the source of that story from yesterday. He says Deputy AG Todd Blanche did not tell the White House he was removing Ed Martin from the weaponization working group after he told Martin he was dismissing him as director during a December 10th meeting at DOJ, even though Trump personally appointed Martin. A source familiar with the White House operations told me, so we don't know, the Russiagate Accountability Unit has effectively been idled for the last 55 days. Again, if Todd Blanche went behind the president's back and fired Ed Martin was there at the White House earlier today talking to the president. Paul Sperry has a lot of great tips. Oftentimes, he is highly reliable, but not always. He doesn't have 100% batting average. Okay, so we also have an update on the situation with Tulsi Gabbard, and wouldn't you know it, Tulsi Gabbard is now in the sights of the deep state. Real quick, before we talk about Tulsi Gabbard, you guys, banks can freeze your accounts. They can shut off your cards. They can lock you out of your money overnight because banks don't protect you. They control you, and that's why real financial freedom starts with ownership. So introducing Rumble Wallet, a non-custodial wallet built for people who refuse to give up control. With Rumble Wallet, you don't just buy digital currency like Bitcoin and Tether. You can also own Tether Gold. That is real gold on the blockchain. And through Tether Gold, you get direct ownership of physical gold bars, each one allocated, verifiable by serial number, purity, and weight. Not paper gold, not an IOU. This is real gold, but you don't have to use bank vaults, storage fees, or gatekeepers. You can buy, sell, or move it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even when traditional gold markets are closed. And if you want, Tether Gold can be redeemed for that physical gold. They'll send it right to you, and that is power. When you support creators here on Rumble, where that QR code is on screen, you can tip them directly using Rumble Wallet. It's peer-to-peer and outside the banking system. No permissions, no middlemen, no cancel button. The wallet is yours forever. Thank you very much to Rumble Wallet. Now, I have an odd request because I had a transaction through locals that was charged back to me. Somebody named Jody. Jody, I'm pretty sure this is you. I haven't verified, but you have an email with airplane in the email. Okay, Jody, if you're listening with airplane as part of your email, I have sent you a message. I am kindly asking you to cancel the chargeback and allow me to just refund you if you don't want to support the show anymore. I'm happy to take care of that for you. But just so everybody knows, if you are supporting the show through like through my website, or you're doing it through locals and you're automatically charging your card, if you do a chargeback to me, then they charge me a percentage of the original charge. So for Jody, it was a $50 per year that she was giving to the show, and they charged me $25, and they gave her a refund. So I get like a 50% penalty of whatever it is, and it counts against me. So Jody, if you're listening, please, I hope you hear this. I sent you an email. Just go ahead and cancel the chargeback. I'll get you the refund. And the only thing I ever ask is that you guys just reach out to me directly and I can take care of it for you. No problem. Okay, so the deep state currently is pulling the same type of shenanigans against Tulsi Gabbard that they tried to pull against President Trump on so many different occasions. Obviously, when she showed up at the Fulton County Elections Warehouse, she struck fear into the hearts of every deep state swamp creature in Washington, D.C. Now, we have a statement from Tulsi Gabbard about exactly why she was there, but the reason we're talking about her first is because prior to this raid, there was a whistleblower campaign to smear her name and get her fired as the DNI. So a U.S. intelligence official, anonymous of course, has alleged, we don't even know what the allegation is, some type of wrongdoing by the Director of National Intelligence. Now, Tulsi Gabbard is named in this whistleblower complaint, and I guess it's so classified because, of course, she's the DNI, that there have been like months of wrangling and hand-wringing because everybody in Congress doesn't have the security clearance to even learn what this whistleblower complaint is. So this was written about by all of these mainstream fake news outlets like the New York Times and Washington Post and Wall Street Journal. But we don't know what the whistleblower complaint is. Nobody knows what the whistleblower complaint is. In addition to that, the whistleblower complaint was investigated by the DNI's OIG, and it was found to be without merit, meaning that the whistleblower complaint is fake. One more thing to connect it to the same campaign against President Trump. The lawyer representing the whistleblower is the same lawyer that represented Eric Ciaramella from way back in the day when they had the fake Ukraine impeachment scam against President Trump. Now, Joe Kent, who is, of course, at the the director of counterterrorism, he said, like clockwork, DNI Gabbard finds 2020 election fraud. And just days later, the Wall Street Journal publishes a cryptic hit piece with anonymous sources. This is the Russiagate impeachment hoax playbook. It's meant to divert your attention from Tulsi Gabbard's efforts to expose and find the truth. Now, let's talk about why Tulsi Gabbard is the woman they are attacking. She responded to this alleged hit piece and this so-called whistleblower complaint against her. And we can go back for a little bit of context to right after the the raid of the Fulton County warehouse for the 2020 election evidence. And I showed you that clip of Senator Mark Warner. He is the vice chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, and he was really nervous about the fact that Tulsi was there. He said there were only two explanations for the director of national intelligence to be on site for an event like that. Either, he says, Tulsi Gabbard believes that there is some case of foreign malign influence, that the 2020 election in Fulton County specifically related to some type of foreign intelligence blunder or attack or something like that, or she's just there outside of her wheelhouse and she is not abiding by her legal obligation because she never told Congress she was going to be there. And even after she went there, she never told Congress why she was there. She never told them anything at all. Does anybody here have any doubt in their mind that Tulsi Gabbard knows exactly what she's doing or why it might be that she wouldn't want to inform Mark Warner or any of these other deep state swamp rats of exactly what was going on there? Anytime people like Mark Warner or the Adam Schiffs of the world, if they get their hands on some type of information that is in the process of being used for good to expose corruption or to bring truth to the forefront or to get people in a position to be held to account and to some measure of justice, they try to gum up the works. And so I'm wondering if there's any connections to these so-called whistleblowers and the Mark Warners of the world. So the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, according to Democracy Docket, which is a left-wing rag. Also, David Becker is the founder of the Center for Election Innovation and Research, another NGO that is not about accountability in elections, but more about making sure they continue to get stolen. He says that the Office of the Director of National Intelligence has no domestic responsibilities. There is no reason for the Director of National Intelligence to be in any kind of voting site. She has neither the authority nor the competence to assess anything in that voting site. And it's incredibly troubling to see something like that. Let me be the first to tell you that his characterization of Tulsi Gabbard's abilities or her responsibilities are completely wrong. He has no idea what he's talking about. And Tulsi Gabbard sets the record straight. Now, the Center for Election Innovation and Research, you may have heard of them before. They received over $65 million in Zuckerbucks during the 2020 election. Becker, he's also the co-founder of the Electronic Registration and Information Center, another 501c3 that's been tasked with maintaining voter rolls for more than a dozen states, probably dozen states that are part of that group that are currently suing Harmeet Dillon and the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice because they want to do anything but hand over their voter rolls, because on those voter rolls, you're going to find ghost voters, dead voters, illegal aliens. You're going to find all kinds of people who shouldn't be anywhere near a ballot box. But let's take a look at Tulsi Gabbard's statement. She says, contrary to the blatantly false and slanderous accusations being made against me by members of Congress and their friends in the propaganda media, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence has and will continue to take action under my statutory authorities to secure our nation and ensure the integrity of our elections. Tulsi Gabbard, you guys, if you haven't figured it out yet, she is based. She is a patriot. She knows exactly what's going on. Tulsi Gabbard, as you know, reported to President Trump in that cabinet meeting last year that they had already determined these electronic voting machines were inherently insecure, that Barack Hussein Obama led what was essentially a treasonous coup against President Trump to not only stop him from coming into office in 2016, but also likely was part of the same coup which led to him not being elected. Of course, he was having the election stolen, you could also say, in 2020. But take a listen to this. She is like Wonder Woman. If you guys ever seen Tulsi Gabbard at the range, like doing drills, I mean, this woman knows what she's doing. She has served. She is total badass. All right, so she writes to Mark Warner, and she says, Vice Chairman Warner and Ranking Member Himes, I have received your letter regarding my presence at the Federal Bureau of Investigation's execution of a search warrant on the office of the Clerk of the Court of Fulton County in Georgia on the 28th of January, 2026. Now, for a brief period of time, I accompanied FBI Deputy Director Bailey and Atlanta Acting Special Agent in Charge Pete Ellis, in observing FBI personnel executing that search warrant issued by the United States District Court for the Northern District of Georgia, pursuant to a probable cause finding. My presence was requested by the President of the United States and executed under my broad statutory authority to coordinate, integrate, and analyze intelligence related to election security, including counterintelligence, foreign and other malign influence, and cyber security, all of which the 2020 election rolls under. The FBI's intelligence counterintelligence divisions are one of the 18 elements that I oversee as the Director of National Intelligence. In 12 FBI field offices across the country, including the Atlanta, Georgia field office, the senior FBI official, the assistant director in charge or special agent in charge, is dual-hatted as my domestic DNI representative. I never knew that before. Very happy to learn that. The Domestic DNI Rep program was established in 2011 through a memorandum of understanding between the ODNI and the FBI. That was under Barack Hussein Obama's reign. Domestic DNI reps are distributed by region and focus on specific domestic issues of concern or interest, including threats to critical infrastructure, which of course election materials and equipment are. I have visited several of my domestic DNI reps at FBI field offices across the country. While visiting the FBI field office in Atlanta, I thanked the agents for their professionalism and great work, and, hear this, facilitated a brief phone call for the president to thank the agents personally for their work. He did not ask any questions, nor did he or I issue any directives. The ODNI's Office of General Counsel has found my actions to be consistent and well within my statutory authorities as the Director of National Intelligence. Now, this is the part of the letter where she basically wipes Mark Warner's ass for him. Number one, election security is a national security issue. Interference in U.S. elections is a threat to our republic and a national security threat. The president and his administration are committed to safeguarding the integrity of the U.S. elections to ensure that neither foreign nor domestic powers undermine the American people's right to determine who our elected leaders are. Towards that effort, the president tasked ODNI with taking all appropriate actions under my statutory authorities towards ensuring the integrity of our elections and specifically directed my observance of the execution of the Fulton County search warrant. Backhand right there. As I publicly highlighted on 10 April 2025, ODNI has been actively reviewing intelligence reporting and assessments on election integrity since the moment I took office. As part of the National Counterintelligence and Security Center's responsibility to lead, manage, and coordinate counterintelligence matters related to election security, NCSC personnel traveled with me to Fulton County to support this effort. They were not present during the execution of the warrant. Now, number two. The Director of National Intelligence, that would be me, she says, has broad authority to coordinate, integrate, and analyze intelligence related to election security. To preserve the integrity of our elections, we must understand whether there has been foreign or other malign influence in our elections, and whether vulnerabilities exist in our election infrastructure that could be exploited in future elections. To enable this, it is critical that the intelligence community work with interagency partners like the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, and other IC elements to ensure coordination of efforts and intelligence sharing and integration. Section 102A of the National Security Act of 1947, as amended, provides the DNI with robust authority to coordinate and integrate national intelligence, which includes intelligence pertaining to foreign intelligence and counterintelligence threats to election processes and infrastructure, e.g., electronic voting systems and software, and voter registration databases. This includes direction for the DNI to have access to all national intelligence consistent with other law, as well as authority to establish objectives, priorities, and guidance for the IC to ensure timely and effective collection, processing, analysis, and dissemination of national intelligence. Now, in Section 119C of the National Security Act of 1947, as amended, requires that ODNI maintain a capability to analyze and integrate intelligence on foreign attempts to influence U.S. policy or public opinion, and to give assessments and warnings to policymakers in Congress. Section 6508 of the National Defense Authorization Act of 2020 provides for the DNI to designate a national counterintelligence officer within the NCSC to lead, manage, and coordinate CI matters related to election security. This responsibility includes addressing risks posed by foreign powers to election infrastructure, such as voting systems and voting registration databases. The NCSC's CI integration, coordination, and outreach responsibilities under the Counterintelligence Enhancement Act of 2002, and delegated authorities as the National Intelligence Manager for CI in accordance with Executive Order 12333 and Intelligence Community Directive 900 are leveraged to support these efforts. Now, we get into Executive Order 13848, imposing certain sanctions in the event of foreign interference in a United States election. Based on that, first issued on 12 September 2018, the president declared a national emergency on the threat of foreign interference in U.S. elections and directly tasked the DNI with assessing foreign intelligence after every federal election. That assessment must identify the nature of any foreign interference and any methods employed to execute it, the person involved, and the foreign government or governments that directed, sponsored, or supported it. That executive order also directed the heads of all federal agencies to provide any relevant information to the DNI, Ms. Gabbard, to execute that direction. President Biden extended this national emergency on November 9th, 2022, and President Trump did so again on 29 August of 2025, demonstrating a bipartisan commitment towards addressing this threat to the integrity of our elections. Pursuant to Presidential Policy Directive 4, issued by President Obama on 26 July 2016, ODNI is the lead federal agency for intelligence support for coordinating responses to any significant cyber incidents, which may include intelligence related to the cybersecurity of election systems. Furthermore, pursuant to National Security Memorandum on Critical Infrastructure Security and Resilience, NSM 22, issued by President Biden on 30th of April 2024, ODNI is the lead agency for intelligence support to any significant cyber incident to critical U.S. infrastructure, to include election infrastructure. And finally, ODNI is the lead agency in the Joint Cyber Planning Office, which coordinates and oversees the nation's strategy to secure critical cyber infrastructure, including cyber infrastructure used for elections. Number 3. ODNI will not irresponsibly share incomplete intelligence assessments concerning foreign or other malign influence in U.S. elections. As I stated publicly on 10th of April 2025, there is information and intelligence reporting suggesting that electronic voting systems being used in the United States have long been vulnerable to exploitation that could result in enabling determined actors to manipulate the results of the votes being cast with the intent of changing the outcome of an election. ODNI and the IC continue to collect and assess all available intelligence concerning this threat to ensure the security and integrity of our elections. Searching through intelligence holdings and conducting assessments with analytic rigor and excellence is an arduous and often time-consuming process. However, that process ensures that the IC's finished intelligence products are objective, independent of political considerations, and based on all available sources. I will share our intelligence assessments with Congress once they are complete. And finally, Section 501A2 of the National Security Act of 1947, as amended, specifically highlights that the congressional accountability requirements of that act do not require that the president obtain approval from the congressional intelligence committees before initiating a significant intelligence activity. Moreover, the United States District Court in the Northern District of Georgia issued the search warrant on the office of the clerk of the court of Fulton County under seal. As such, I have not seen the warrant or the evidence of probable cause because the DOJ submitted to court for approval. Therefore, the ODNI had no ability, authority, or responsibility to confirm the committees about the search warrant ahead of its execution. She ends by saying, if you have any questions, reach out to my assistant. You may contact Sarah Lynn Colley, the Assistant Director of National Intelligence for Legislative Affairs. Signed, Tulsi Gabbard. That is about as close as you can get to the Director of National Intelligence setting fire to a sitting member of Congress. Everything that she wrote was so well presented, so thoroughly researched. There is nothing that Mark Warner or anyone else will be able to say. There is nothing that they will be able to do regarding her actions or the things that she's doing, the actions that she's taking, the planning that she's engaging in, the reports that ultimately she will write, the recommendations she will make, or any of the indictments that, pray to God, are soon to come down for the people, the domestic malign influences that have been attempting and successfully subverting the elections here in the United States of America. So continuing, let me say thank you to Filter Dog. Samantha Guthrie's husband, Michael Feldman, founder of the DC-based Glover Park Group, a Bill Clinton, Al Gore Democratic political fish tank, named in the Epstein files, has seen its websites go dark. Ooh, interesting. I have not seen Samantha Guthrie's husband named yet. Also, Jay, thank you for the ship. I appreciate you. Now, just one final thing. Caroline Leavitt was asked about Tulsi Gabbard's participation in the securing of U.S. elections because, of course, she has directly been tasked by the president to oversee voter fraud and election security efforts here in the United States of America. This woman is a beast. Take a listen.
Tulsi Gabbard has been tapped by the President of the United States to oversee the sanctity and the security of our American elections. She's working directly alongside the FBI Director, Kash Patel. Is a coordinated whole of government effort to ensure that our elections, again, are fair and transparent moving forward. I don't see anything wrong with the president tasking a cabinet member to pursue an issue that most people want to see solved. Maybe you don't, but I know many Americans do want to make sure our elections are protected, and that's what Tulsi Gabbard is focused on doing.
Tulsi Gabbard is the woman for the job. I know a lot of people were nervous about her when she was nominated by President Trump. I always knew that she was going to be the best person to do this because she went up against both the Democrat and the deep state machine very early on. She was from Hawaii. You know, what were you going to do running for office in Hawaii? You're going to be a Democrat. Pretty much everybody that has power in Hawaii is a Democrat. But once she got to Washington, D.C. for the very first time, it didn't take long for her to see that they were trying to mold her into the image they wanted for her. And she, of course, was not going to be a person to just simply go along with it. My good friend Duke Nukem USA, he says, I got a text yesterday from an acquaintance 10 years ago. I showed him Pizzagate. He's left-leaning, but he texted, "You were right." And that is gold to hear as a conspiracy theorist, or as I like to say, a conspiracy analyst. Feels good, man. Love you, Zach. Love you too, homie. Absolutely. Yes. Anybody else out there? Do you have any normie friends, any leftist friends who have been following this stuff recently and seeing that, yes, in fact, this is real? They're finally coming to Jesus on it. I love seeing it. Now, one final thing, we have body camera footage here from inside the Fulton County raid, and I don't have the full footage. I just saw this just as I was going live, so I figured we'd check it out. I'm going to see about getting the entirety of it, but obviously it's 14 hours long, so probably going to have to wait for somebody else to clip it.
So we have the right to be here, and we've been very nice.
So did anybody get a physical copy of the search warrant? No. When did they get here? About 12:30. Just unannounced. Unannounced. I'm gonna try.
Yeah, that's how a search warrant is generally executed. They don't call the people. They're hoping to catch up and say, hey, by the way, We're going to be there tomorrow morning. If you don't mind, try not to destroy evidence in the middle of the night. They're going to show up when you least expect it, and they're not going to warn you about it.
Have the names of everybody that was out here. I already know how it's going to go, but I mean, if they refuse, that's on them. Right here. All right, so we were given very limited information.
That is Peter Ellis. He is the new acting special agent in charge at the FBI Atlanta field office. The former acting special agent in charge was recently fired by Kash Patel because he was slow walking the very investigation that Peter Ellis picked up and immediately took off. This dude took the ball and he ran for the end zone.
We have a search warrant for this, like literally for the entire location. Okay. But now we're going to get amending another search warrant for another location involved. So we'll have that pretty soon. So
this is all in regards to election side stuff.
You know where we're here, right? So I can't discuss more.
I got you.
More than that, but as long as we keep, the big thing is just trying to keep media. Someone let media in here and keep media clear out of here.
What's happening now is that their warrant is wrong. It had the wrong, it's not in elections possession, it's in clerk's possession, so it had the wrong department.
So on our end, nobody received a copy of...
The attorneys asked them for it, they finally gave them a copy. Then the attorney's like, it's wrong, so they're allegedly waiting for the judge to update it.
What was wrong on there?
It didn't say, it just says, elections, which we don't have, in which they knew that before they got here.
The warrant will be amended slightly, but for all intents and purposes, what they had is what it's going to look like. We wanted to let her facilitate us moving through the building to unlock the gates so that we don't have to breach it, because one way or the other, the records are coming with us today.
Can you believe it? They were potentially going to breach because nobody was going to let them in. I love it. You guys, see, this is the thing. This is what lets me know that they're not playing around. Like, there is obviously an order of operations. There's a plan here. Sure, there have been roadblocks. There have been stumbling points along the way because the deep state is wide and in breadth and depth. They have people positioned everywhere. Now, we also have some good news coming from Representative Unapanuna, a.k.a. Anna Paulina Luna, and she has just revealed that Senate leadership is finally moving to nuke the so-called zombie filibuster, which would restore an old-school standing filibuster so that they can advance the SAVE Act. This is the legislation that will fix the election system, take President Trump's executive order on securing elections here in the United States of America, and make it law. At a very minimum, it will ensure that you've got to be a citizen to vote. It will also produce voter ID and a number of other things. So finally, we don't have to worry about the filibuster. According to Luna, John Thune finally had a meeting with President Trump, and he said that, yes, the Senate is preparing to bring the SAVE Act to the floor without the modern abuse-ridden 60-vote blockade. Under the standing filibuster, senators who want to delay a bill must actually stand, speak, and debate. And once debate ends, only 50 votes are required for passage. Of course, hopefully there will be every single Republican voting, and then if we need, we'll have J.D. Vance there. This is how the filibuster is supposed to work. But this new zombie filibuster was created by Washington elites to make it impossible for any legislation or any business of any kind to be able to make it through. Then bills get killed before people even show up. Let's go ahead and listen to Unapanuna describe for us exactly what the plan is. You can see she's right here with our man Burchett. Dadgummit.
And Rich and Luna and myself are not willing to allow that.
So based on your discussion, it sounds like you're moving towards.
Yes, based on our discussion right now, we're moving towards it. Also, we got assurances on the standing filibuster, which is incredibly important. I don't know if you guys remember when I was talking about inherent contempt. A lot of people didn't know what that is. The standing filibuster is an old school parliamentary procedure, but it's a way to break through what we consider traditional norms to get voter ID passed. I think that it's brilliant that they came up with it, but exactly that's why we kind of have these discussions, and we're very happy about the outcome. So there should be a standing filibuster announced soon, and I would actually reach out to Senator Thune's office to ask him about that because
I agree. Rand Paul cannot be trusted. But I'm just hoping that this is like one of those things that he can say, okay, sure. Why wouldn't we want American citizens to be the only ones who can vote?
They have different rules in the Senate.
So that'll get you to yes tomorrow on the rule.
Yeah, as of right now, we feel very comfortable where we're at based on what we are discussing.
Can I get your reaction to the Clintons agreeing to testify before the Oversight Committee?
I actually just got back from the White House, so that's our first knowledge of that. But I would say that, I actually had inherent contempt prepared for it to be a civil, essentially charge.
I've also been pleasantly surprised with Anna Paulina Luna. A lot of people, even when she was running, people were messaging me and saying, you've got to expose Anna Paulina Luna. You got to help us make sure she doesn't get elected. But she's been one of the only people that, quite honestly, have been pushing for the right things. It seems like she's made an alliance with Tim Burchett. And Tim Burchett is like one of the only people that I truly trust on the regular. All right, so Chuck Schumer, of course, is saying that he will force an extended government shutdown if they do bring the SAVE Act to the floor. He said, I have said it before and I'll say it again. The SAVE Act would impose Jim Crow-type laws to the entire country and is dead on arrival in the Senate. It is a poison pill that will kill any legislation it is attached to. Single-issue bills, Chucky. If House Republicans add the SAVE Act to the bipartisan appropriations package, it would lead to another prolonged Trump government shutdown. But of course, if the shutdown does continue, I don't care, to be honest with you. These people are pretty much ineffectual do-nothings. They are there for themselves. They are not there for the American people. President Trump is saying we need to get the government open. I hope all Republicans and Democrats will join me in supporting the bill. Get it sent to my desk without delay. There can be no changes at this time, but we cannot have another big, long, pointless, and destructive shutdown that will hurt our country so badly. Mike Johnson also commented on this, and he said, we'll get it done by tomorrow. That is today. As pressure mounts, we've got 35 members of Congress who have formally demanded that Mitch McConnell stop blocking the SAVE Act from advancing out of the Senate Rules Committee. Brandon Gill said, I just sent a letter to Mitch McConnell asking his committee to stop stalling the SAVE Act. 83% of Americans want proof of citizenship to vote, yet the Senate has done nothing for 300 days. I want to remind you, the House has already passed it twice. But yes, they have no problem funding aid to illegals. They have no problem continuing to send money down ridiculous paths, doing nothing for the American people, doing everything for themselves and their non-governmental organizations and their pet projects. We've also got this very strange and yet not at all surprising story coming from a former Ukrainian official. He claims that the current Zelensky government relies on witchcraft. You know who's from Ukraine? Marina Abramovic. His name is Andrei Yermak, and he said that, he says that Andrei Yermak is said to mess with corpses, burning herbs, and performing dark rituals. So this is in an article written, I believe, by RT, by Marina Akhmedova, a member of the Presidential Human Rights Council of Russia. And the former press secretary to Volodymyr Zelensky, Yulia Mendel, has made claims that sound like tabloid fodder, sound like fantasy, but given everything that we've known for many years and others are just coming to learn about the global elites and their dark predilections, it sounds to be perfect, exactly what we would expect. So according to Mendel, the disgraced former gray eminence Andrei Yermak, he was the former head of the presidential office and the right hand to Volodymyr Zelensky, just recently exposed in the embezzling and fraud scheme taking place in Ukraine. He seeks the help of witches of various stripes, shady occultists, gathering water from corpses, burning herbs, and performing dark rituals. She says she first heard whispers about this in 2019. After a briefing, a journalist did not chase the then new president for comments, but repeatedly asked Yermak what he had been doing at a cemetery. He ignored the question. A year later, a minister confided to Mendel that Yermak was into magic. By 2023, someone from an important service told her that he supposedly kept a chest of the dead. These were dolls made by magicians, witches from Latin America, Israel, and Georgia. Georgia, the country, not the state. That chest, she says, was already filled with the dead. Interpret that as you wish. Sounds like he was making like voodoo dolls or something like that and using it to have his enemies killed. So This is not the first time we've had accusations like this against Yermak. Lord Bebo said back in December of last year, Zelensky's buddies, during searches at Yermak's place, a voodoo doll and other occult items were found. That was from a Ukrainian MP speaking after the search of Yermak's home. During searches at the former head of the president's office, Andrei Yermak, items of occult symbolism were discovered. This was stated by the former People's Deputy Ihor Mosoychik. According to Mosoychik, during the search at Yermak's house, voodoo dolls, masks, satanic stars were recorded, as well as bracelets and tattoos with corresponding symbolism. All this indicates that he belongs to one of the occult sects. Moisich then stated, in his opinion, the head of the National Bank of Ukraine, Andrei Pishnia, belongs to the same group, who allegedly has the same tattoos and bracelets. The former deputy linked the alleged membership of officials in the occult sect with the policy towards the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. Remember, the Ukrainian Orthodox Church has essentially been restricted from being able to practice and meet by Zelensky and his government. It became clear when Yermak was so consistently engaged in the destruction of orthodoxy in Ukraine. According to him, he is preparing an appeal to the Security Service of Ukraine, the SBU, demanding an examination to determine to which exact sect the country's leaders belonged. Is anyone here surprised to learn that the government of Ukraine is doing the same type of occult deep state garbage that they do here in the United States? I think not. Mokanon says Ukraine appointed Marina Abramovic their head of education. Yes, actually, I do remember that. She's held like government positions on a number of occasions. So we are now going to talk about Epstein, but there is actually an email that I found in the new drops, which I think I should probably talk about in correlation to this story. So Jeffrey Epstein in 2010, August 12th of 2010, he writes to someone and he uses the subject line Murray. And he talks about a secret society that I have never heard of. He says, I just got a note from Bob Peary, who asked me if I thought Murray Gell-Mann would make a good candidate for the Zodiac. Now, when I first read that, I thought, what, you mean like the Zodiac Killer? But no, I guess there's a secret society known as the Zodiac. Whoever it is that Jeffrey Epstein is communicating with, he said, as you know, it's one of those last secret type societies. The Zodiac is one of the really cool ones. There are only 12 members at any one time, and it is still very secret. They do really cool stuff, but mostly, since they are all very old, it's just dinners in exotic locations. I can't tell you all the 12 members because I don't know who they are, but I know Paul Volcker is one. Some guy named Howdy, whose family owns Stuyvesant Town, Bob Peary, and I think Tom Brokaw. Bob represents Cancer, the sign, not the month. You are a member until your death, but if you get senile, they can put you into eccentric orbit and not invite you to meetings, etc. Anyway, the only way you get in is if someone dies. There are obviously no minorities or women allowed. Anyway, let me know what you think. Finally leaving West Africa tonight. Let me know when you get your postcard. You will hopefully laugh a lot. Miss you. 12 signs of the Zodiac. Exactly. That's where the name comes from. But I can't wait to do a deep dive on this apparent secret society I had no idea existed. JJ Breedlove says, Zach, it's getting wild. I sent you a follow-up email for your own EMS suits. Just need some information from you and Mrs. Paine. You'll be golden. Yes, I was just speaking with her about it today, and I was telling her that I need to have her help me answer those questions. So expect an email from us probably in the next 48 hours, and we can get into it. All right. Now, as we dive into these deeper emails from Jeffrey Epstein, I have one more message from our friends over here on a Rumble. You guys, banks can cancel your accounts. They can freeze your cards. They can decide what you're allowed to say, who you are allowed to support, or what you are allowed to buy, because big banks and financial institutions have total control over you and your money, and they use it. They know it. They love it. That's why financial independence matters now more than ever. Introducing Rumble Wallet. It's a wallet built for real freedom. With Rumble Wallet, you control your money, not a bank, not a government, not a tech company. You can buy digital assets like Tether, Tether Gold, and Bitcoin all in one secure place. There's no permission, no middlemen, no cancel button. And when you want to support the creators you actually believe in, you can use the Rumble Wallet app to directly tip those content creators securely, instantly, and without interference. It's not a credit line they can shut off. It is your wallet permanently. Yours to protect for your future, for your family, because when the system fails, when institutions turn on their own people, financial sovereignty is the difference between security and vulnerability. Rumble Wallet is not about politics. It's about freedom and ownership, protecting what's yours. So take control today. Download Rumble Wallet now at wallet.rumble.com and step away from the big banks for good. You can also, if you're on Rumble, you can see the QR code on screen. Take ownership. Take control and protect your financial freedom. All right. Thank you very much. And thank you again to JJ Breedlove. Appreciate you, homie. Filter Dog says Elon and X award Nick Shirley $100,000 for Minnesota fraud article. Good for Nick. That is awesome. Filter Dog says a family of Seattle black boy killed when Chaz's BLM Antifa border security shot up the car he was in 2020. Gosh, I had heard that he was awarded $10 million. You're saying it's $31 million. That is even more. Yeah, I talked about that the other day, but obviously $31 million is a lot more than 10. All right, so have you heard of the Zodiac? Anybody here know about this secret society? Can't wait to look into it. Already getting some ideas about it. Okay, so we have an update about Lord Peter Mandelson. He was, until yesterday, a member of the Labor Party, also a sitting member of the House of Lords. And through the Epstein documents, we revealed that Lord Peter Mandelson was sharing confidential government documents meant for the Prime Minister with Jeffrey Epstein. Well, it was speculated yesterday that Peter Mandelson was in a lot of trouble. When you do that in the UK, you are looking at a life sentence for effectively committing treason, basically. So now he is facing a full criminal investigation into those allegations that he leaked this market-sensitive information from Downing Street to pedophile financier Jeffrey Epstein. These documents that were released by the U.S. State Department prove that Peter Mandelson provided Epstein with details of internal government discussions. These were only known to a handful of people at the very top of government. He did this on at least 4 separate occasions when he was the business secretary. This was all happening in 2009. Now, a government source speaking to The Times said that Scotland Yard detectives are expected to interview Mandelson and take statements from other senior labor figures as witnesses, which include Gordon Brown, who Peter Mandelson also brags in the emails that he's the one to convince Gordon Brown to actually step down. Now, they are also expected to ask the U.S. Department of Justice to release unredacted copies of the emails so that they can see everything that Mandelson put in there. This move is expected to be announced rather shortly. We are expecting it within the next 24 hours. So Scotland Yard is now currently reviewing these allegations. The Cabinet Office also told the Metropolitan Police that the emails sent by Mandelson to Epstein constitute criminality. Mandelson is already being investigated under suspicion of misconduct while in public office. This is an offense that carries a maximum sentence of life in prison. For a successful case to be won by the Crown, it would require prosecutors to prove that Mandelson deliberately leaked details of sensitive government information to Epstein, knowing it to be wrong or with reckless interference. It sure seemed in the email that he knew exactly what he was doing, and he also knew that he was not supposed to be doing it. So good luck to you, Peter Mandelson. Expect to see you in prison before too long. Turns out that there is another member of the House of Lords who also was communicating with Jeffrey Epstein, the convicted pedophile financier, after he had been convicted of these offenses of procuring children for illicit acts. This one is named Lord Ken MacDonald. He used to be the head of CPS in the United Kingdom, and he spoke with a reporter and said he has no recollection of any call with Jeffrey Epstein in 2012 that would have been completely unaware of Jeffrey Epstein's reputation. He also added, I am sure I had no prior knowledge of Jeffrey Epstein. At the time, as you know, Jeffrey Epstein was already a convicted pedophile. A year earlier, it was widely reported that Prince Andrew, now simply Andrew of Mountbatten, was stepping down as a UK trade envoy because there was criticism over his ongoing public relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Lord MacDonald was director of public prosecutions until 2008. I wonder if he would have been one of the people who had a hand in making sure that Jimmy Savile was not prosecuted. I got to look into that because I don't remember hearing his name when doing digs on Jimmy Savile, but seems like he would have been in a position. He is currently a sitting member of the House of Lords. He's also the chair of the Orwell Foundation, which is kind of ironic. In these emails, we see that Epstein spoke with Lord MacDonald to help set up a meeting with the late Yemeni billionaire Shahir Abdullahaq. Abdullahaq's son has been linked to the 2008 death of a student in London, Martine Vick Magnuson, and Abdullahaq wanted legal advice. So Jeffrey Epstein paid $20,000 to meet Lord MacDonald in Paris in the hope that he could help untangle this web of trouble that the young man was in. In May 2012, MacDonald wrote, Jeffrey Epstein and I have spoken, and I've now spoken to the other party, Shahir Abdullahaq. We hope to meet in Paris later this month. Farouk Jr. fled the UK, but he has since claimed of this death. It was just an accident, nothing nefarious, just a sex accident gone wrong. Now, responding to my questions today, Lord MacDonald revealed Mr. Abdullahaq was obviously clear that his son had committed these crimes and very much wanted him to return to Yemen. It was also clear to me that his son was guilty of the offense. Obviously, these claims are not verified yet, and these accusations against Mr. Abdullahaq have already been made publicly, and there is no conversation about that specific aspect of it in the exchange. It's just something that was well established. Now, MacDonald continued in his conversation with this reporter. I discussed my visit to Yemen to meet with Mr. Abdullahaq's son and its purpose with the relevant investigating officers of the Metropolitan Police, who obviously also wished to see him return. Unfortunately, I failed to persuade him, and so my visit was unsuccessful. In response to Epstein's subsequent emails to Abdullahaq about the case, MacDonald said, I certainly would never have told Epstein that Abdullahaq's son would have got bail in the UK should he return. This would have been inconceivable. Equally, there is no such thing as house arrest in the UK, and the idea that his UK sentence could amount to that and charity work is preposterous. He would undoubtedly have received a life sentence. I do not understand the rest of the comments in the emails you quote. I expect Epstein was embellishing our conversation, of which I repeat, I have absolutely no recollection for his own purposes. Let's take a look at these conversations. So you can see that Jeffrey Epstein emails the Lord. Jeffrey Epstein receives an email from Shahir, but the first email is from Shahir. From his CV, he seems well-positioned with vast experience discussing the Lord. If he manages to undo the tangled web of issues, then I will stamp that he is a direct descendant of Yaqub, like you and me, Yaqub. Is that, I think that's the big brain black guy who supposedly invented white people. Hold on, I think that's what he's talking about. Hold on. Yaqub meme. Oh my God, that is what he's talking about. I've talked about this on the air, I think, with Brad on Altered State. Yaqub is supposedly this was an invention of like the what is it? The Islamic organization that the oh God, who the house? It's not the House of Islam. It's the Nation of Islam. That's what it is. The Nation of Islam invented this guy, Yaqub. Yaqub is supposed to be a ancient African geneticist who invented white people only to have them take over the world and enslave black people. He literally is supposed to have this giant brain, and he was so smart that he genetically invented white people to have them take over. Not black Israelites, the Nation of Islam. The Nation of Islam. But, oh my God, why would he say they are a descendant of Yaqub? So Epstein says, I talked to him. He said rough sex cases, not unusual. Autopsy would be a factor, but not a big one. Drugs are not a defense. He thought he would get bail-reduced charge and would not exaggerate his potential strengths. He held the position of head of prosecutions, the exact same position that he would be dealing with. Norway has put pressure on the government because this individual who was killed, this woman, was a citizen of Norway. I think you should focus on what punishment would be acceptable. Time spent, maybe a form of house arrest, work charity. The high-profile nature is a problem. The press will highlight any issues. I think you're right. Something like house arrest plus charity work. Remember, he killed a woman due to his age. Also studying the case was rough sex, too much alcohol, maybe drugs, at least one of them. Okay, so this is Jeffrey's email to Ken. No. This is to Jeffrey Epstein and Ian Osborne from Ken McDonald. Dear Ian, Jeffrey and I have spoken, and I've also now spoken to the other party. We hope to meet in Paris later this month. See you in London soon. Best wishes. Toodles, Ken. Anyways, he claims he has no memory of it. Let me say thank you so much to Cinderblock66. Thank you for the $20 rant. Says, I am a lurker, and I love your podcast. Well, thank you so much, Cinderblock. Glad to have you here. Glad to know you're out there. Mokanon says, I'm still working through the Steve Bannon relationship with Epstein. Seems like the same play Trump did with Elon when they were having a breakup, which makes him no longer an enemy of the deep state. I don't think so. I think that... Okay, so Steve Bannon was hired by Jeffrey Epstein to do public relations for him after, because I think that he was nervous, obviously, about President Trump being the president. Steve Bannon was essentially forced out of the White House through the efforts of some Zionist critics of him in the administration. So I think that the split between President Trump and Steve Bannon was the result of outside interference. They likely did that to ensure that Steve Bannon would then be available to be hired by Jeffrey Epstein. And perhaps at that point, I think that Steve Bannon was working still for President Trump to gain access to Jeffrey Epstein and get an entrance into his life for the collection of information and evidence. So the conversations that Epstein and Bannon hold, I think you have to remember that Bannon was being paid to have that relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. So based upon that, he has to act in a certain way. But I don't think that that means that Jeffrey Epstein is not an enemy of the deep state. Jeffrey Epstein was a prolific child trafficker who was involved with every single person that we know was doing terrible things to kids. So I think you're correct in suggesting that maybe it's a complicated relationship, but I definitely don't think Jeffrey Epstein is off the hook in any respect. All right, now, one person that we spoke about was Peter Attia. He was a CBS correspondent, married, father of multiple children, and also was enamored with Jeffrey Epstein. At the time of Peter Attia's own son being born, it was a difficult labor. The child was born, I believe that there was like a problem with its heart. It almost didn't make it. His wife and the child were in the NICU, and I think this baby died for a period of time. Rather than be present at the birth of his own son, Peter Attia was out slumming it up with Jeffrey Epstein. They were doing whatever they were doing. We don't know specifically. But Peter Attia basically told his wife, I'm busy with Jeffrey Epstein. I don't have time to be there for you giving birth to our very sick child who may not make it. Very disgusting. He is in the Epstein emails, these new releases, like over 1,000 times. Now, Peter Attia, after looks like being fired by CBS, was forced to reply on the on X. All right. He says, the following email is what I sent my team last night. I sent a similar version to my patients also. You've put your trust, your credibility, and your hard work into what we have built together, and I take that responsibility seriously. You deserve a complete and honest account of what did and did not happen. I apologize that I did not get this out sooner, but I wanted to be thorough. The purpose of the DOJ releasing these documents is clear: to identify individuals who participated in criminal activity, enabled it, or witnessed it. He claims I am not in any of those categories, and there is no evidence to the contrary. Remember, Peter Attia said in an email to Jeffrey Epstein, the most exciting and frustrating aspect of being your friend is realizing how I don't remember exactly the phrase that he used. It was somehow like how crazy your life is, but also knowing I can never tell anyone about it. Well, we all know what Jeffrey Epstein was doing behind the scenes, and we also know why somebody like Peter Attia wouldn't be able to divulge that to anybody. He says, to be clear, number one, I was not involved in any criminal activity, says you. Number two, my interactions with Epstein had nothing to do with his sexual abuse or exploitation of anyone. They talk about a lot. They talk about a lot of things related to women, loose women, getting women, and, you know, in general, sex. But they never mention specifically children. Number three, I was never on his plane, never on his island, never present at any sex parties. He did tell Jeffrey Epstein's assistant that he gets Jeffrey Epstein withdrawals when he doesn't get to hang out with him. What a weird thing to say about a grown man, especially a grown man who's a registered sex offender. I've never said that about another grown man. I think the only person that I've ever said that about was my wife, okay? The only person that I think that you should have, like, any anxiety about not being able to hang out with, maybe your children, but your wife, certainly. That said, I apologize and regret putting myself in a position where emails, some of them embarrassing, tasteless, and indefensible, are now public, and that is on me. I accept that reality and the humiliation that comes with it. I want to start by directly addressing the email thread that I've been asked about the most. In June 2015, I sent Epstein an email with the subject, "Got a fresh shipment." The email contained a photograph of bottles of metformin, a medication I had just received from the pharmacy for my own use. The subject line referred to the picture of the bottles of medication. Well, we have to take his word on that because we don't get to see that picture in that email. He replied with the words, "Me too," and attached a photograph of an adult woman. Sounds like Jeffrey Epstein is saying he just got a fresh shipment. I responded with crude, tasteless banter. Reading that exchange now is very embarrassing, and I will not defend it. I'm ashamed of myself for everything about this. At the time, I understood the exchange as juvenile, but not a reference to anything darker or harmful. Again, says you. At that point in my career, I had little exposure to prominent people, and that level of access was novel to me. Everything about him seemed excessive and exclusive, including the fact that he lived in the largest home in all of Manhattan, owned a Boeing 727, Lolita Express, and hosted parties with the most powerful and prominent leaders in business and politics. I treated that access as something to be quiet about rather than discussed freely with others. One line in that exchange about his life being outrageous and not being able to tell anyone is being interpreted as awareness of wrongdoing. I think that interpretation seems to be pretty right on. That is not how I meant it at all. What I was referring to, poorly and flippantly, was the discretion commanded by those social and professional circles, the idea that you don't talk about who you meet, the dinners you attend, or the power and influence of the people in those settings. What I wrote in that email reads terribly, and I own that. I'm not going to go through this whole thing, but he addresses that one thing. If you want to look at what Peter Attia is saying, you can. But again, Peter Attia, now likely a former correspondent for CBS News. Agaratos says, "Your pompous asshole interpretation is spot on, my friend." Yes, thank you for that. All right, now, You know who else is exposed in the Epstein emails? Alec freaking Baldwin. Look at this. Jeffrey Epstein appears to have had a meeting with Alec Baldwin while looking into Baldwin, a witness testimony. They were accusing Epstein and saying that she had also met Joe Biden and Alec Baldwin in Pennsylvania. There's no evidence of them doing anything wrong. Only interesting that Alec Baldwin has a connection to Jeffrey Epstein. We already know about a connection to Joe Biden, but the fact that he is being discussed here. What we have is, let's see, May 17th, 2011. He says, who should we invite to dinner for the week of the 23rd? She says, what about Alec Baldwin? I hear he's going to run for office. And then here you can see the witness testimony. In 2001, during summer or fall, blank went to blank, where she met Jeffrey Epstein and Prince Andrew. Said both men asked her to bring her school books and act like she had bad grades, and they were professors. The victim felt like the men gave her their stamp of approval because after that encounter, she met with people like Alec Baldwin and Joe Biden in Pennsylvania. The victim, she met blank, a man that was doing some type of website for Pamela Martin. Blank abducted blank and kept her in his apartment for a couple of weeks. Eventually, she got away and moved to an apartment. So, cannot wait to see what else is going to check that out. All right, continuing. We've also got yesterday we learned that Sarah Ferguson had congratulated Jeffrey Epstein on just having a baby. We know about Jeffrey Epstein's plan to turn Zorro Ranch into a sort of genetic incubator for his seed. His plan was to impregnate as many women as he possibly could, have them deliver babies at Zorro Ranch, and then he would effectively, I guess, wash his genetics out into the population. Jeffrey Epstein had this idea that he was virtually some type of a Yakub or something like that. But as part of this newest release, it includes what appears to be a diary of sorts of a woman who sounds like she was impregnated by Jeffrey Epstein and then had her baby taken from her. So this person she was part of a court case, I believe, and she is a victim of Jeffrey Epstein. It's been established that she is a victim. She had a baby fathered by Jeffrey Epstein, and just minutes after having this baby, the baby was taken from her. And this is all part of this latest release of documents that have come out. Now, she claims that she had this baby girl in about 2002. And in 2002, she would have been about 16 or 17 years old. Now, she expressed discomfort at what she says Epstein's goal was, to create a superior gene pool by having a baby with her. And, of course, this is par for the course with eugenics. It also goes along with a number of other conversations that Jeffrey Epstein seemed to be having with people who also subscribe to an idea of genetic superiority. There was that email as well where one of the people Jeffrey Epstein was communicating with was talking about creating some type of a virus to increase the mental capacity of black people. So there's a whole bunch of pages from the diary that were revealed. But in her diary, she writes, "Why me? It makes no sense. Why my hair and eye color?" Now, this story was actually reported previously, but this is the first time that I've ever seen these pages from the diary. Now, her story takes place in 2002. We learned for the first time of Jeffrey Epstein's eugenics plan taking place at Zorro Ranch in 2019. Sarah Ferguson congratulated him on having a baby in 2011. There could be countless numbers of Jeffrey Epstein's spawn out there in the world. We have no idea where any of them are. As far as I know, nobody has been identified conclusively as the child of Jeffrey Epstein. But, we know that he had a deformity of his penis. So, maybe that's something that's going to come up, or maybe he was trying to breed the deformities out by choosing women that he felt were superior genetically. Now, you can see here, this is from the diary, and it was classified at one time. That tells you that when this document originally came into the possession of authorities, they thought it was so legitimate that they needed to make it eyes only. You needed to have a security clearance to even see this diary. This was not intended for public release. So she writes like what appear to be a series of poems, a series of diary entries. There appears to be some type of code in here. She's also got like scrapbook stuff that is in here. This right here, this ultrasound, this is the ultrasound from her baby. It says she is gone and she won't be coming back. Here is this poem written. It's called Child. It was not written by her, written in 1963. And she says she was so very, she was so very beautiful. But this is some type of a letter substitution code, and I don't know what it says. Here is some other aspects showing more letter substitution code, and portions of the letter substitution code have been redacted. You can't see what it says. This is another entry that she wrote. Controlled all by Jeffrey, all the time. Get away from it all and go to New Mexico. What in the hell? This makes no sense. What about school? Remember, she's 16 years old. Behind the scenes, he is now controlling everything when it used to be Ghislaine, who some days acts like she hates me. Secrets of all of them. I am tired of keeping the secret. I know people are wondering, but I can't tell. I am exhausted. Broken promises. I don't understand why she is treating me on some days like the enemy, but then we lay in bed together and she is how she used to be, warm. He makes her feel my tummy, and it is so sad and confusing. Superior gene pool. Why me? It makes no sense. Why my hair color and eye color? That feels like very Nazi-like in thinking about these stupid, insane theories he has. I guess in his mind it makes sense. The piano and music comments are made to convince me that this is right and will create perfect offspring, he calls them. Now, that sounds like, if he's talking about piano and music, maybe this girl was a pianist. Maybe she had some special musical ability, and that's one of the reasons why Jeffrey Epstein chose her. I don't think it works that way, and it makes me hate playing music altogether, piano or viola. I am starting to resent them both. I miss the person I was before I was made into what feels like a human incubator. Now, this victim is represented by a law firm called Wigdor LLP. This diary was shared with federal prosecutors who were investigating Epstein and Maxwell. And included in the diary is a copy of that pregnancy scan, the ultrasound that I showed up there. That was when the baby was 20 weeks in her womb. And she also wrote, after she wrote, she is gone and she won't be coming back, a shot and those rod-like things had a hook and so much pain. Ghislaine said to push all the pain away. I saw between her fingers this tiny head and body in the doctor's hands. It reached its tiny arm up and had a tiny foot. And then she recounts how she heard in the hall Ghislaine said she was beautiful. She was, not is. She was a beautiful girl. I heard her. Where is she? Why did she stop whimpering? The woman wrote. She later described herself as feeling like a human incubator. There is no respect for me as a human. And, they refer to her as a woman, but again, she would have been 16 or 17 years old. She was a child. Elaborating on what she described as Epstein's ambition to create a superior gene pool, she wrote about the piano and music comments. The woman later filed a lawsuit against Apollo Global Management's Leon Black, who was one of Epstein's associates who continued to pay Epstein for many, many years after he was a sex offender. Filing the lawsuit under the pseudonym Jane Doe in 2023, the woman alleged that Leon Black raped her at Epstein's house in an assault that caused her to bleed. Black has, of course, denied the allegations. The case is still ongoing, so there may be updates to this in the future. Here is an email, and that was the email from the Sarah Ferguson congratulating Epstein on the baby in 2011. That is Sarah Ferguson sitting with an unnamed woman at Christmas. This is that video we watched of Jeffrey Epstein chasing around children. Now, the baby that we would be looking at for 2011, obviously that baby would be somewhere around 14 years old. They might be a freshman in high school, and they could be anywhere in the world. We don't know. Maybe they're being raised by one of, the members of the royal family or something like that. But here is another picture of Epstein with a baby. That baby is unidentified. We don't know. Yeah, absolutely insane. So it does look like in one of these videos, there is a DNA paternity test on the table in the New York mansion that Epstein owned. And there is a suggestion that Epstein and Maxwell were engaged in some type of fertility treatments. There was an email that was sent in October of 2005, which discussed fertility and when one of them would be able to have a baby. It was Ghislaine Maxwell that was discussing it. They're talking about the sampling and how the ejaculate must be collected so that it can be inserted to ensure that whomever it is they're trying to inseminate is going to have a baby. And this was right around the time that Ghislaine Maxwell claims that she kind of quit hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein because she got into a relationship with another billionaire by the name of Ted Waite. And she instructs him, your cup and instructions are in the Oval Room. The sample has to be dropped off at 10. You have to fill out the forms. I would have filled them out for you, but I was not sure what you wanted to put on them. Let me know if you want or need me for anything. So we also have this right here. Now, yesterday, John was requesting some type of evidence related to sex trafficking of children specifically. These people are smart, okay? The things that they talk about, they border on the edge of insinuation. There are code words that are used. You are never going to see an email that says, I am paying you $100,000 to sell me a child so that I can do terrible things to that child. You will never see that stuff. That's simply not how it is. An investigation is going to be done taking a look at the totality of the evidence. You've got communications between people, not just emails, but you're also going to look at perhaps text messages and phone calls. Then you've got the transfer of money. Then you've got travel that they're going to engage in. Then you're going to see, did they go to the airport and pick up an 11-year-old girl and then that child just disappeared? But here are some iMessage receipts that we can take a look at. On February 14th of 2014, Jeffrey Epstein is having a conversation with someone, and he says, kid is taking placement text next week. Placement test, perhaps. I gave her all the information. Then he says, and this is a little disturbing, but, the kid couldn't have done bikini wax because hair are too short. Next time, doing her and Elena's nails. Kid will come to the house straight from Frederick with the iPad portfolio. And then he ends by saying, done with Pornhub introduction. So right here, he's referring to someone he is referring to as a kid, specifically describes the inability to do a bikini wax. Now, of course, you could refer to someone as a kid, or they could actually be a kid. We don't know either way, but certainly it's the kind of thing that needs to be investigated. But if it is a kid done with Pornhub introduction, are you introducing Pornhub to a child? Even if this is a person who's an adult female that's a model, you're still introducing Pornhub to them. There is direct correlation to sexual activity in this email, and I think that the specific wording related to the bikini wax is highly disturbing. Highly, highly disturbing. Misfit 556 says, apparently there's a conspiracy that the Island Boys are his sons. Yeah, I don't believe that. Yeah, I don't think so. I have heard people say that, and I've seen them get so freaked out and upset by it. But either way. Maybe I should do that for basically. That is such a ridiculous one. Hold on. Let me write that down. I can't imagine that Jeffrey Epstein would have children with the woman who mothered those boys. Island boys are Epstein kids. Conspiracy. That is just so funny. Okay, I'll look into it. Ravelin says, Zach, we were looking for the George Floyd arrest videos last week and not finding them. I asked someone on X and she pointed me towards BitChute, and there they are. Just search for George Floyd arrest. Yeah, definitely. I mean, pretty much if you're unable to find something on X or on YouTube, I would go look on BitChute. Because BitChute is, pretty much like the free speech alternative where you can basically upload anything. Also, all of my videos, basically since the beginning, are on BitChute. There are some that are no longer there. Let me say thank you very much to Darla, rather. She says these people are sick. It's an understatement. They want to create a race of their own while sacrificing other kids and making pizzas. This is sick. You are absolutely correct. They do not see us as humans. And yes, Epstein had no moral boundaries, WS84. Now, another section of these emails included a reference to the Princess of Norway, who apparently was enamored with Jeffrey Epstein. He claimed in one of these emails that she wanted to have his child. Now, if we're talking about, the traditional Nazi type of eugenics, she is a beautiful, blonde-haired, blue-eyed European woman. Her son, Marius Borg Høiby, currently is on trial for rape or sexual assault. I'm not exactly sure how they classify it in Norway. However, just before his trial was supposed to begin, the prince was arrested for another actual, another sexual assault. So his mother is coming under attention right now at the worst possible time for him. Obviously, if he doesn't want to go to prison for raping people, but of course, just don't rape people. And he was arrested over 2 new allegations just a day before his trial was supposed to begin. His name is Marius Borg Høiby. He was arrested on Sunday evening. He's accused of assault, threats with a knife in violation of a restraining order. Norwegian media quoted police as saying the offenses allegedly took place over the weekend. Again, you don't want to get in trouble for things. You don't do these things. But this kid being a prince, he likely believes that he can do whatever he wants. So the Oslo District Court granted their request to keep him detained for up to 4 weeks on the grounds of perhaps re-offending. Now, this is the young man right there. This is his mother. And his defense attorney told the Associated Press that the arrest followed an alleged incident involving another person on Sunday. He declined to give details, said Høiby contests his detention, and his legal team were considering an appeal as soon as he and the other person can provide statements to the police. So I don't know why anybody would want to have a child with Jeffrey Epstein. So, I think Jeffrey Epstein is an unreliable narrator, but I do know that there is some weird stuff happening in royal families all throughout Europe. So I'm not putting it past him. Sabrado says, have you seen the video of Hot Gay Scott and Nicki Minaj? Best video ever. No, I haven't. We'll see if I can find that after this. All right. Now, for anybody out there who might have somebody who thought that they were crazy a couple of years ago when we were talking about Wayfair, well, look at this. One of Jeffrey Epstein's assistant, Karina Shuliak, she bought a single unlabeled item from Wayfair for $8,453 in 2018. June 28th of 2018 at around 4:30 in the afternoon, she used her PayPal to buy an $8,453 item from Wayfair. Now, we have no description. If it would have been a kid's name, my God, that would have been obviously a dead giveaway. But right here, this is like in the midst of the Wayfair scandal. You've got Jeffrey Epstein's assistant buying an $8,453 item from Wayfair. Can't believe it. Absolutely stunning to be able to see this. Crazy, crazy stuff. So continuing, we also have this email right now, a man by the name of Martin Nowak. Now, he's a Harvard professor. He emailed Ghislaine back in 2002 thanking her for her hospitality. But it's this one line that really puts it in a disturbing light. Dear Ghislaine, many thanks again for your amazing hospitality. I am so very sorry I caused you so much worry and that I spoiled this day. I am so happy that I did not kill anybody. My perspective of life has changed somehow. Thanks. Lots of love, Martin. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I've never almost killed anyone just hanging out with my friends. Never been in a position to put, I guess, the entire party's lives at risk. I don't know what he could have done, but that is pretty wild that he wrote that in 2002. We have another one right here from Martin Nowak, this time sent to Jeffrey Epstein. Now, this is even more disturbing. This is 12 years later, after apparently Martin and the Epstein crew had been hanging out for some time. He says, our spy was captured after completing her mission. There is no additional context. And Jeffrey Epstein replies, did you torture her? Did you torture her? Huh. Well, the subject of torture has come up in these recent emails on many different occasions, talking about torture videos, talking about torturing women, talking about desiring torture. But this one right here, Martin Nowak. Now, Martin Nowak, being a professor at Harvard, easily could have some type of intelligence connection, but he's also clearly involved with the Epstein network. So if someone was spying on them, perhaps gaining information to pass on to relevant authorities or maybe a journalist or something like that, he's indicating that she was captured, but she completed her mission. And Jeffrey Epstein asks, did you torture her? Did you torture her? Huh. So I think that Martin Nowak needs to answer questions about that. That is something that I think is highly newsworthy. In addition to that, we have a video of what appears to be a young girl, a little girl, dressed in some type of Japanese schoolgirl outfit. This looks like a child to me. It doesn't look like a woman who is, underdeveloped. This looks to me to be a girl who is under the age of 18. She doesn't appear to have womanly features, and you can hear her voice.
Doesn't work.
Audio cuts out. That sounds like a little girl's laugh to me. Siesta Randy says, Zach, thanks for getting it right 99.97% of the time. Same as the fatality rate from COVID-19. Thank you, Randy. I appreciate you. Salty Army is Legion. Says, I'm not telling Zach how to do his show, but I'd like to see more Sydney Sweeney photos. What's funny is that Sydney Sweeney just released a lingerie collection, and she got in trouble because as part of the stunt of the launch, she hung her bras from the Hollywood sign. And so she was in the news for that. I just didn't think that it was newsworthy for this program. But let's talk about Ghislaine Maxwell just a little bit. A lot of people have asked me about the Terramar project, and I've done a lot of attempted dives into the Terramar project. The problem is that there is precious little information that's out there. Although Ghislaine Maxwell spoke about it publicly, she did a TED Talk, she was attempting to raise money. It appears that all of the money that went into Terramar was essentially hers. She was the only person working at Terramar. Her purported mission was to save the oceans. There was some donations from other people, but Ghislaine Maxwell, as a submarine pilot, has often been theorized as a way for children or people to be brought to the island clandestinely. Now, Ghislaine Maxwell shut down Terramar essentially the day after Jeffrey Epstein was arrested in 2019. Here in this email, which she sends to someone named Jay Jep, where the email content is privileged redacted, which means that likely the information in there has some intelligence value. Ghislaine Maxwell sends a article in 2015 about Virginia Giuffre coming forward and talking publicly about her abuse by Jeffrey and Ghislaine. And when she sends this article, all she says when she sends it to JJEP is the Terramar Project. The Terramar Project. She doesn't give any sort of context or anything like that. But if you assume that the Terramar Project, which she founded, and she was basically the only person who worked there, even though it had a stated goal of ocean conservation, if you assume that maybe it had some useful utility in the Jeffrey Epstein trafficking operation, it would make sense that she would say the Terramar Project when calling attention to the fact that she and Jeffrey Epstein were being exposed by Virginia Giuffre. Very interesting. Also very interesting is that among the photographs from this latest drop from the Epstein files, turns out there was a trap door inside Jeffrey Epstein's home, which led directly into the ocean. That's right. A lot of people have theorized about tunnels. Another thing that came out yesterday was discussions about tunnels under the Epstein Island. Of course, there were posts about the tunnels many years ago on the boards, and they were never confirmed other than there was a door on the side of the island that looked perfect if you were going to have tunnels going underneath the temple. But here we have confirmation that Jeffrey Epstein had a hatch built inside of his house, which went directly into the ocean. Could Ghislaine Maxwell and the Terramar Project have had the ability to pull a submarine directly up underneath the house? Seems like maybe they could have. Here you can see it from another wider angle. Now, it also turns out that there was a secret cabin at the Gulch overlooking a rocky coastline in one of Jeffrey Epstein's homes. This apparently was placed fairly well down the slope, sheltered from the wind with an unbroken view towards St. Croix. This is on Little St. James. The cabin would be primarily serviced with oil lamps and candles, a hand pump for water stored in the cistern built below, unsuitable for drinking, and an earth or chemical closet at some distance in the cabin. A number of other elements could be introduced that depend on finding exactly the right location. A secret pathway should be made to one of the rocky coves on the south shore, with precipitous steps down the flank on the cliffs to a cave or hideaway near the water's edge. A tiny hut might be built on the vegetation line of the southwest beach, the Divers Beach, from which visitors can go goggling without the need for a boat. Maybe they mean snorkeling. There remain proposals for dealing with a number of outstanding utilitarian issues, the repositioning of the helicopter pad on the island, the camouflaging of the generator and water desalination plant, the access arrangements for oil and other deliveries, the garaging of golf buggies, ATVs, etc., the sitting of workshops, storage places, etc., and staff accommodations. Now, in that email where Jeffrey Epstein is talking about the here we go. This is it right here. He is discussing this with Gary Kearney. This is an email from Gary to Jeffrey. Jeffrey, of the building to date, $5,000 is for the ATV garage. I would not hold up payment of $105,500, searching whether Gensler had direction from the team that added tunnels and office below the main house. That's passed. Okay, so he's saying that there was already tunnels and an office built beneath Jeffrey Epstein's main house. Here, Danny works this morning at the main compound. Cell tower, coffee bench light, master light, terrace light. Peter, first steps first. Bryce can sketch it out on where you want vehicles in the sheds and tunnels, along with storage. There's also an email which talks about staff sleeping in tunnels. Dearest Jeffrey, I am so sorry I missed your birthday. This is from his publicist, Peggy Siegel. The good news is you are still younger than me, but may not look like it. Then something is redacted. Just kidding, for a silver fox, you're in tip-top shape. She says, how have you been? What's up with the Caribbean island? Are the staff still sleeping in the tunnels? So multiple emails between Jeffrey Epstein and people that he communicated with on a regular basis, confirming that, yes, there are tunnels beneath certain portions of the island. All right. And of course, we've seen on multiple times, I've shown the video of the drone footage over the island. We've always assumed that that door to the lower left of the temple would have been an access point for a tunnel, but we never had access in the tunnel. And of course, the posts referred to Jeffrey Epstein filling those tunnels with concrete after they were brought up in those posts. Now, Bill Gates' ex-wife, Melinda Gates, after it was revealed by Jeffrey Epstein in these emails that Bill Gates got chlamydia or some type of STD from a Russian prostitute and then needed to get some type of medication to give Melinda Gates so that she would, so that they could get rid of her STD. Melinda Gates has come forward and she's now speaking about her anger. This is her specifically talking about that email where she was likely given some type of an STD after her husband, Bill, slept with a Russian prostitute.
The emails in the files suggest that Bill Gates had additional affairs and that he tried to get medication to treat a sexually transmitted infection and that he was going to give you the medicine without you knowing. His representative has said all of this is false. It is not on you to have to respond to the details of that alleged behavior, but I wonder what your dominant emotion is when you read these news articles with these details.
Sad. Just unbelievable sadness. Unbelievable sadness, right? And again, I'm able to take my own sadness and look at those young girls and say, my God, how did that happen to those girls, right? And so for me, it's just sadness for, you know, I left my marriage. I had to leave my marriage. I wanted to leave my marriage. I had to leave I felt I needed to eventually leave the foundation. So it's just sad. That's the truth, right? And it's kind of like, at least for me, I've been able to move on in life.
Now, she also says at another point in this conversation that there will likely be a reckoning. In this moment on camera, Melinda Gates says, "We're having a reckoning," as she speaks about Jeffrey Epstein, her ex-husband Bill's relationship. She says what happened to those girls, obviously beyond heartbreaking. It's very painful. She says that those people, like Jeffrey Epstein and the people who abused those children and her ex-husband, are the ones who need to answer for this. And she goes on to say a lot more, but obviously we're not going to have time to listen to that whole thing. Now, a couple of more quick items. Jeffrey Epstein wrote an email to a person who is redacted about Ghislaine Maxwell's father, Robert Maxwell. Robert Maxwell was a spy for Mossad. He was a British magazine magnate, media magnate, and he robbed his own company's pension fund for hundreds of millions of pounds. He mysteriously disappeared. Allegedly, he fell off of his yacht, the Lady Ghislaine, his daughter was Ghislaine, and his body was never found. It was always assumed that either he faked his death or he was murdered, and that's why we never found his body. Jeffrey Epstein says he was passed away, meaning somebody killed him. And he says Robert Maxwell threatened Mossad. He told them unless they gave him 400 million pounds to save his crumbling empire, that was exactly how much he had stolen from the pension fund, he would expose all he had done for them. In that time, he had free access to Margaret Thatcher's Downing Street, Ronald Reagan's White House, to the Kremlin, and to the corridors of power throughout Europe. Maxwell passed on all the secrets he learned to Mossad in Tel Aviv. In turn, they tolerated his excesses, vanities, and insatiable appetite for a luxurious lifestyle and women. He told his controllers who they should target and how they should do it. He appointed himself as Israel's unofficial ambassador to the Soviet bloc. Well, if he threatened the Israeli government with blackmail, I would imagine it was probably Mossad who actually killed him. Now, we also, much like the letter that Bill Gates or that Jeffrey Epstein wrote to himself about Bill Gates, he also seems to have written a letter similarly to Les Wexner. You know the long sordid relationship between Les Wexner, the founder of L Brands, Victoria's Secret, etc., and Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein's large properties in Ohio, the house in New York, these were all provided to him by Les Wexner. Les Wexner was like his main client for a while after his initial client, which was Adnan Khashoggi, who was, of course, laundering money for the Iran-Contra affair. Now, take a look at this letter right here. Jeffrey says, Les, I am truly sorry to hear that you have been the target of an extortion attempt by the same girl that has tried to extort Ehud Barak. Ehud Barak, the former Israeli prime minister, somebody who obviously was getting women from Jeffrey Epstein, also tried to extort Alan Dershowitz and Prince Andrew. I guess that she is either using bottom feeder or she is being used by them. I am certain that John Ziegler has transmitted my suggestion that you and I sit down together. I was told that the family has no interest in a meeting. As I did not ask for a meeting with the family, I find that answer unsatisfactory. So at some point, Les Wexner cut Jeffrey Epstein off and tried to distance himself from him because, of course, he was a convicted pedophile now. I have never once, not once, done anything but protect your interests. I owe a great debt to you, as frankly you owe to me. I was not surprised by your reticence to sit with me when my bad judgment with women became a cause celeb. As I'm sure you recall, you didn't sit with your mother or sister or Sharon when a conflict arose, as I did it for you. You didn't sit with Jack Kessler, Stanley, or Stanley's son. I did it for you. I never asked to see you. I never sent you a request. Abigail and I sat. She asked many questions. She made many unfair, aggressive, and false accusations, none of which could have been fully answered without violating a confidence with you. Many of which I did not answer, some that I did. You and I had gang stuff for over 15 years. What does that mean? Gang stuff? A great deal of it that she was unaware of. I had no intention of divulging any confidence of ours, no matter what accusations she made, and she made quite a few. As I'm sure she told you, I didn't argue with her, threaten her, or you, or in any way did not behave as I had always, putting your interests first. I always told you I would never, under any circumstances, give it up or put you in harm's way, no matter who, what, or when. I would guess that if things have not changed much, as I know you well, that you will find a need to show this letter to Abigail. If so, I would ask that you not raise your shoulders, purse your lips, and tell her, I have no idea what he means. Is Jeffrey asking for something? There must be more to it. We don't know what we don't know. This is a very clear threat to Les Wexner, suggesting that he meet with Jeffrey Epstein and remember all of the things that he did for him over the years, and more importantly, all of the ways that Jeffrey Epstein could expose Les Wexner if he decided he didn't want to play ball. Now, with this doc revealed also that Steve Hoffenberg told the FBI Epstein is implicated in the Arthur Shapiro murder. We can see that right here. So this says, was a former business associate or acquaintance of Epstein. Hoffenberg, Stephen Hoffenberg, is serving a 20-year sentence for his role in a Ponzi scheme and securities fraud that was worked by the New York field office in case 196C NY 2355483. Through correspondence, Hoffenberg advised Edwards' firm that he had information regarding Jeffrey Epstein being involved in the murder of a Columbus, Ohio attorney named Arthur L. Shapiro. Shapiro was killed on March 6, 1985 in the Columbus area. Who is from Ohio? Les Wexner. This is probably connected to Les Wexner. The case remains unsolved. A review of ACS does not reflect Hoffenberg offered this information as a proffer during the 196C matter. That means that Hoffenberg offered this he had nothing to gain from it. It should be noted that Hoffenberg appears to have a history of mental illness. Since his incarceration, he has filed civil rights complaints regarding the facilities he has been assigned to. It is requested that Trenton RA interview Hoffenberg for information regarding Jeffrey Epstein and his involvement or knowledge of the murder of Shapiro. Then they give a description of him, tell where he is. He was at Fort Dix, and they give his Bureau of Prison Information stuff. All right, and this is a diagram from the Shapiro homicide investigation, which actually shows the limited and Les Wexner and Wexner investments on here as a person or an organization of interest when it came to this. You can see these connections that are made, the Columbus City Council, these various holding companies, a trucking company, another family that's involved. So very, very interesting. This is Shapiro right here, and need to do a bit more digging to determine what the relationship was between Shapiro and Wexner right there. Very interesting stuff. All right, you guys. Before we conclude here, I've got to go through these final thank yous over on Pilled, etc. But I have one final message from our friends over on Rumble. My friends, if you are a parent or a grandparent, here's some real talk about America. We're about to hit a huge milestone. We're coming up on the 250th birthday of our beloved country. 250 years of freedom, grit, sacrifice, and the greatest experiment in self-governance the world has ever seen. This is the perfect moment to help your kids understand why this country matters. Not just the fireworks and the hot dogs, but the history behind it all. There is a free guide called The Kid's Guide to America's 250th Birthday, and it's honestly a great way to introduce kids to how America began, who the founding fathers were, what they risked, and why their ideas that they fought for then still matter today. This guide sends kids back to the moment when the brave men signed the Declaration of Independence, knowing full well they were risking their lives for freedom. And it all breaks it down in a way that your kids can actually understand and enjoy without watering it down or turning it into boring schoolwork. So if you care about raising kids or your grandkids who know where this country came from and why it's worth preserving, this is something you're going to want to grab. And the best part, it's completely free with this special offer. All you do is pay $2 for shipping and handling. Just head to free250guide.com. That is free250guide.com. And the Kid's Guide to America's 250th Birthday is yours today. America's story matters. Make sure the next generation knows it. Thank you very much to Rumble and the good folks over there. Final thank yous. Mokanon says, I hope Virginia is alive and protected somewhere. I sincerely hope so as well. But of course, I think that the knowledge that all of this information was going to come out was enough for them to kill her. I mean, it's as tragic as it is. It's not difficult for these people to kill them. And, you know, I think that sometimes it's difficult to understand how little these people care for human life. You know, we keep seeing, look at this. I mean, let me just one more right here. Jeffrey Epstein to somebody named Robert Schenck. This is the way the Jew make money. And made a fortune in the past 10 years. Selling short the shipping fortunes. Let the Goyim deal in the real world. You know, there's another email where Jeffrey Epstein and somebody else is talking about how people who aren't Jews don't have souls in the same way that they do. I mean, like, there are people among the elite deep state circles who consider themselves to be a different being that, you know, they're the humans. They are the spiritual enlightened beings, and we are not. And you see it coming out in these emails. You know, it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank everybody for hanging out with us. And I also want to say thank you so much to everybody who supported the show. Oh, you know what? Because Sabrina brought that up, let me see if I can find that Scott Bessent video. And then we will end with that. Let me see. What did she say? Nicki Minaj. And okay, I found it. Okay, let's check it out. Trump account start the American dream. Oh my gosh, that is so great. That is so great. Scott Picent has a wonderful sense of humor. All of these guys have a great sense of humor. Let me see. Final thank yous over on Pilled. My question would be, what else was he spiking her drinks with during their marriage? Gates is a psychopath. I can only imagine. Only imagine. Filter Dog says, oh, wow. Movie star Melania Trump, tremendous success. So it's the #1 documentary in 19 years. Can you believe this? So I had a top model. Now I have a top movie star. Oh, President Trump was saying that? Yes. Melania's movie is a great success, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. Darla says, I remember when the Evergreen containers listed contents as live art. Wonder if those expensive items were in said containers. During the time when the canal was backed up on the ships, yes, the name of the ship? Ever Given was the name of the ship, and then Evergreen is the company. And yeah, of course, we know that human trafficking is committed using shipping containers just like this. Moon Baby says, bro, Wayfair, really? We knew it way back then. Damn. Super D, thank you for the cookie. Let's see. Darla, these people are sick is an understatement, and I think that is it. We've read all of them. All right, you guys, check out the other sponsors of the show in the description below. Got to sign off there. We need to eat some dinner, and I love you. Have a wonderful evening. Good luck. God bless. Be back here tomorrow at 5 p.m. for another episode of Red Pill News Live. I'm going to pass out the gold pills, and I will send you on a raid. Peace. Don't forget to hit the like.